I wear a helmet, I have all the needed lighting, I follow the direction of traffic, I stop at all the stop controls. Yet I put a lot of trust in drivers that they're gonna do what they need to do, because if it's me versus a car, the car always wins. And so I appreciate that. Pedestrians, cyclists, we certainly need to be defensive in what we do and aware of our surroundings, increase our situational awareness, but I also ask that drivers be patient but cognizant of those who are not protected by a cage of steel out on our public roads. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Are there any questions of staff on this presentation? Yes, Councilmember Perla.
I want to express my gratitude again to former Councilman Valenzuela and former Mayor Zaragoza for forwarding this so the whole council could hear this presentation. This is very worthwhile. I think the only question I can think of, is this tied in, somebody will ask, is this tied in with the police department if they want to follow a car?
No.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councilman Starr.
Yeah, I tend to like to look things through a financial lens. It's not, of course, the only way to look at something. There's many important ways to look at it. I guess if I was looking at something like this, I'm interested in throughput and how much time I'm saving people. And in the back of my mind, I say, well, if I'm saving people collectively 10,000 hours, what am I paying to save those 10,000 hours, and what would their earnings rate be if they were, at work instead of on the road? So I don't know if any sort of analysis is ever done on that sort of thing, but it's the sort of thing that interests me because it tells me, is this giving bang for the buck? Because maybe it's only costing us, the equivalent of a dollar per hour that we're saving them, or maybe it's costing us $100 per hour we're saving them. I don't know.
Yeah, Andrew mentioned it in his presentation, the cost-benefit analysis, and typically these are, when you do these cost-benefit analysis, you're doing it for like grant applications. Right. And I will say that signal coordination and signal timing score the highest in cost-benefit analysis because the cost of implementing them is minor staff time. The benefit's not just the savings of the individual, but you can imagine that the amount of force that a semi-truck puts on the asphalt when it stops, and translating that to how much that costs in asphalt repair over the life of that street, that is part of that cost savings as well. So when we do these analysis, when we do these cost-benefit ratios, the signal coordination projects score very, very high because of those kinds of things.
And let's not forget, though, safety is also paramount.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item?
Mayor, we do not have any speakers in person or virtually.
Thank you. This item does not need any action. So we'll move on to the next agenda. Thank you again for the presentation. The next item on the agenda is item J2 from Public Works, resolution of AD 2001, Improvement Fund Account Closeout and Budget Appropriation. The recommendation is that the City Council approve and authorize a budget appropriation in the amount of $16,500 with the Special Districts Account Fund for the cost of administering the Improvement Fund closeout and completing a final arbitrage rebate yield calculation. And number 2, adopt a resolution declaring surplus, ordering disposition of the surplus within the Improvement Fund of Assessment District. Any council members have any questions on this? I imagine because of the low amount, but it's a special district. Yes, Councilman Starr.
Thank you. So, as I'm understanding this, basically we borrowed, I guess, more than what we really needed to in order to, take care of this improvement, and that's fine. There's no such thing as landing right on the X. I guess my question is, since this was done in by 2015, 2016, I think it was, we had that $180,000 sitting as a balance then. Was there anything that would have prevented us from being able to close this out back in 2015 or 16? It just seems like we've had idle funds for all these years. Is that right?
We were not able to find any reason why it wasn't done sooner.
Okay, all right. And is there any possibility that there's any others like that out there in the, like any of the other districts, or is that?
We're not aware of it, so this is a bonded CFD, so it's not like our other CFDs. We do have other bonded CFDs, so this is, a small subset of a subset, so.
Okay. And when I try to do an analysis of something like this, I'm looking at what was the original yield on the bonds when they were issued? What's the current market value of those bonds as a percentage of par value? What's the current yield to maturity? Those sorts of things. Is there some sort of analysis that was done here? Because I'm wondering if we're calling a bond, let's say the bonds are selling for 97 cents on the dollar right now, but to call those bonds, let's say we have to pay par or sometimes even a premium. I don't have any way to see that here. I don't know if anybody has that information.
Yeah, I don't know if, let me try to explain this a little differently, if that's what you're reading into the staff report. Our bond payments are set.
No, I get it, but if you pay off some of your bonds, you're obviously, the costs are going to be lower over time because you're paying less interest, right? So when you're purchasing a bond, you have to think about, if it's an existing bond, what's the yield to maturity with the money that you're spending actually at that point. And I don't know what that rate is. I didn't see that in here. But the reason why I'm asking a question like this is I ask myself, well, what's an alternative use for the money? And by whom? So for example, if the monies were just refunded back to all of the property owners there, they can use that money maybe at a higher use than we can. Maybe they are paying off credit card debts and their interest rates are through the roof. Whereas we're buying, basically a municipal bond with, very, very low rates. It may not be the best use to do this option 2 that's proposed here. I'm wondering, could option 1 make more sense because you've got people who have been paying all these taxes all along? You want to give back to the folks that were, a little bit overcharged, not by design, but it's just the way it works out. But if you can actually give back money to the people that were overcharged rather than to some future property owners, it just seems like it's more of a moral position to take. And given that it's highly likely that the interest rates that these property owners are paying are much higher than the yields that we're able to pay down, I'm just thinking that the analysis here doesn't really consider that piece of it.
So if you look at the pros and cons table, the option 1 is the least amount of benefit to the property owner from a total dollar standpoint.
And that's where I disagree, because what you're missing, or what we could be missing here, is that it isn't just the cost of our bonds, it's what's their opportunity cost. And the people who could have the money in their own hands, and people are hurting out there, you'd like them to have the money in their own hands rather than, delaying it. I mean, we could make the decision that, hey, what we're going to do really is we're going to kind of invest this for you by paying down debts, and it's going to yield you 3.5% or 4%. I have no idea what the yield to maturity is on this thing. But given a choice, if I'm a resident and it's a choice between, if I have this extra money, I don't have to borrow as much money on my credit card this year, to me, that's a slam dunk. You want them to have that money because it's their opportunity costs, not our opportunity costs. We're talking about their opportunity costs, and those are the folks that we're serving. So that's why I think this analysis doesn't quite take that into account. Does that make sense?
No, I understand the lost opportunity, but that option is shown in the staff report. So if that's an option that the council chooses, the pros and cons are established in the staff report, what that looks like. Going one step further, what that person does with that money, we can't make that assumption as a staff member.
We can't.
Right.
But, given a choice, I'd rather have people have their own money and have them make choices rather than us making choices for them.
But as the Public Works Director said, the choice is there.
That's right. And I understand. I'm just saying option 2 was recommended. I know the committee looked at that and said, yep, we're sally forth with option 2. I'm just simply saying that in the analysis of it, we're not taking into account in option 1 that the people having money back in their pockets, they may have a higher valued use than the small yield that you can possibly get on paying a municipal bond off earlier. That's my point.
And I would like to add the last bullet point of the cons for option 1, because this bond payment still goes forward.
I get it.
So the person that sells that house, the new property owner, actually is not going to get any benefit from that with option 1. So basically, you're giving that one benefit to the one person, and not necessarily sharing that benefit with the new owner, who's still going to be paying that bond. So to me, I feel like it's not as many people get that same benefit.
Right, and part of that's actually reflected in the price of the house that they pay. So they go in knowing that this bond payment is part of the price, and they're going to reduce what they're willing to pay for that house based on that. So I would argue that they actually do get the benefit of this, all parties to some extent share the benefit here. But right now, I'm looking at the folks that originally paid too much. Given a choice, I'd rather have tax dollars back in people's pockets and let them have the opportunity to.
Mr. Starr, if I may,
Yeah, Councilmember
can you repeat what you just said? That it is late, but I see what.
All right, so let me go back. So when you pay off a debt, it's really like making an investment. And the yield you're getting from paying off your debt is whatever the interest rate is on that debt.
Right.
That's the benefit you're getting. And what we're doing here with one of these options is that we're making a decision for people to say, you know what, we can best invest your money at this low interest rate. And I'm saying that given a choice, people might rather pay the normal property tax that they are every year instead of maybe a reduction, a little bit.
But
If they've got the use of the money now, they can actually invest it in a higher yield than on a municipal bond.
But then the only person that would be getting the benefit would be that homeowner. So, and I know what I was asking that you repeat was you said that the home would actually be lowered?
So if you have a property tax that's higher, let's say,
Right,
when people buy a house, they take that into account when they make a purchasing decision, right?
right.
So if a tax remains higher, then the amount of money that you're willing to pay as a buyer to the seller of the house is going to be lower. In order to have the level of housing costs that.
Well, I would disagree. As a homeowner, and I don't want to get back and forth on this debate, but if I am buying a property, I'm buying it already at a higher rate than the person that purchased it.
Yeah, it's not that simple.
And unfortunately, I'm owner of a few homes. So yes, I will go ahead. If I'm selling my home, I purchased my home for, I don't know, $500,000. Now it's worth $1 million. I'm selling it for that $1 million. I'm making profit on that. But the taxes I'm paying is on that $500,000.
I'm saying all things equal.
Well, not all things are equal.
Well, hold on a second.
What was the, can I just intercede here? What is, looking, it was voted at committee 3-0. Councilmember Basu, what was the discussion?
Well,
There wasn't much.
the discussion is pretty much set on what we believed as a committee was in the best interest of the city. And I see what Mr. Starr is saying, but I think his analogy is a little bit off, because you cannot buy a home, a home, and expect it to be lowered because the taxes are lowered.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, for example, let's say you have a home today and you have the Prop 13 tax rates.
Right?
Okay. When somebody buys the home from you, they're not getting the Prop 13 rates that you get anymore, right?
That's correct,
If they could get the Prop 13 tax rates,
which they can't.
I'm saying if they could, I'm just trying to do the analysis here. If they could, they'd be willing to pay more money for your house, right? Because when you look at the monthly cost for housing, you take into account everything, including the taxes. So, I mean, this is just, just looking at it as an economist here.
I understand what you're saying, but what you are saying is unrealistic.
Is,
It's just unrealistic, because that's not what happens.
yeah, you're missing the point, and it's maybe because I'm not conveying it real well.
Well,
And it
we have-
can be also that you're missing the point, because I'm not conveying it well.
We haven't, I mean, I think I hear myself, and I don't know if you were part of that committee, Mayor Pro Tem, when it was approved, but I do hear Councilmember Starr, it is a benefit to the city or the benefit to the resident or who was there at that house, but, well, we have a decision to make here. We can make that decision.
Yeah, I'll speak to
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'll speak to that. Based on what was presented, there is no option here that is the perfect option for everybody. But based on what staff's analysis and what they brought forward, we're looking to, I've heard Councilmember Starr and other members bring this up. When we talk about bang for the buck, I think we have some nuance to that here, where we're actually looking to the best benefit for the most as we possibly can. We could certainly benefit these particular homeowners in option one. But as it states on the last bullet point on the con for that option, it would only provide a fiscal benefit to property owners in fiscal year 24-25. Now, if there is an option to spread out that benefit to the city, to the debt service on this, to whatever we're looking at, if there's, no matter what the issue is, I'm, as a council, we're gonna be looking at what decision can we make to do the best good for the most people possible. And I understand the theory around if we put money back in people's pockets, that they can certainly yield that in different ways, and in some ways better, in some ways not as well. And there are plenty of examples of that in economics that we could certainly use as case studies. I mean, in the pandemic, we had some great stimulus that came through the federal government for residents of the United States. And some people might have turned around and invested and got some great yields. Some people might have bought orthopedic mattresses because they needed that for their back, right? So, or fireworks, according to Councilmember Perillo. But the point being that, I mean, and I say this respectfully, if you have a crystal ball that shows that this is the option where we're gonna get a lot of great yield out of this for this limited number of people, then great. After we're done here, let's you and me go over to 7-Eleven, we'll buy some lottery tickets too and some scratchers. But I truly believe that based on what staff's analysis has been on this, that aside from crystal ball and thinking how we can get the most yield for a small number of people, option two, which was the recommendation to committee, and the committee vetted and sent forward to this council for consideration as well, is going to do the most good for the most people. Understanding that it's not the silver bullet, it's not the slam dunk, but given the other options, was the one that does what I would be looking for and what's presented to us. And again, in that discussion, I believe there was the ability to mix and match things, but not recommended, because then we get into a lot of nuances and it may even have to come back as an item. So anyways, those are my comments. Did I capture everything there?
Yeah, and I guess the three options that we were given, and I guess I do understand I think I do understand what you're saying, Mr. Starr. I look at this like the stimulus money, right, that we received. We received a one-time stimulus money, it was gone. So we had to make a decision in committee, do we want to do that, or do we want to continue to spread out that savings for the life? And I guess it's just the way we look I mean, we all have our own different ideas on how we should invest our money, but, it's a choice, but the committee felt that option 2 was the best. And I still feel it's the best. And, we can do one, you can choose to do one, and that's fine, it's just what you believe.
Sure. Thank you, okay, Councilwoman Basua. Any other discussion? Well, before that, Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item at all?
Mayor, we do not have any speakers, but we do have 4 people that are listening, so let me ask if they're interested in speaking in this item.
Okay.
So callers ending in 0218, 9665, 7299, 6377. If you'd like to speak on this item, please press star 9 to raise your hand, and we'll call you to speak on this item. Okay. We'll start with caller ending in 7299. Please press star 6 to unmute and introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes starting now.
Hey, Luli, this is Greg Runyon, and I'm letting you know that I left the meeting and I came home, so I'd like to speak on the other 2 as well. Just very quickly, I think it's very apparent as a council that you guys are going to spend a lot of time going around and round in what might be, could be. And I think you're all right in that when you listen to this is about making a decision based on the facts that you have. And I commend you all for having the discussion, but I do think it's very important that we focus on what we have, not what we might have. And with that, I'll be quiet and let you guys finish up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Runyon. Madam Clerk, we'll go to the potential maybe next virtual caller.
Okay, once again, any listeners wishing to speak, press star 9 and raise your hand. I thought we did. Mayor, that concludes our speakers, both in person and virtually.
Thank you. Any council member have any further remarks or comments on this item?
I will go ahead and move the recommended action.
Is there
I will second.
I'll move to amend it to option 1.
Madam Clerk, can we?
So just so you're clear on how this works. So you can make a motion. Somebody can then make a motion to amend. What would then happen is that you could have debate on the motion to amend. And then that amendment is either voted up or voted down with a majority to replace.
So you're making an
original
amendment
motion.
for,
So
to go ahead to.
I'm amending this, my motion is to amend it so it's option 1.
Okay.
So if you want option 1, what you do is you'd first vote for my motion. You could then still debate it even after it becomes the main motion on the floor. And then either, vote it up or down at that point. On the other hand, if you want option 2, what you'll want to do is you'll want to defeat my motion by voting against it. So right now, the motion on the floor would be the amendment, and if I can, I'm happy to speak to my amendment, unless, I'm happy to speak to my amendment if you're willing to.
Well, you're making an amendment, yeah, you certainly, if you
Okay.
want to elucidate on it.
So I've talked to a lot of people, and
Don't we need a second for your amendment?
I guess I do, yeah.
Is there a second on Councilmember Starr's amendment?
Mayor, I think we need to have a clarification. And I appreciate Mr. Starr knowing the rules, but I'm counting on the guy that we hire, the city attorney. Straighten this out here, please.
So a motion may be made to amend the motion that is before the body. And if there is no second for that, then that motion to amend goes away, and then you go back to the original motion.
Okay.
City Attorney, but I don't think we have a second on that amendment. Councilmember Starr is free to talk about.
So, no, no, he's right. I'm requesting a second. If nobody here wants to give me a second, then my amendment will not be considered, and then you'll be back to just the main motion. So that's.
Well, Councilmember, I'll put it out one more time to see if there's a second to your amendment. Is there a second on Councilmember Starr's amendment? Okay.
Mayor, you have the option of seconding it too.
Yep. So then we'll just go back to the original motion. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote on the motion that was on the floor?
We would still have.
Yes.
Okay.
We would still have debate on the motion, so.
Okay.
And to that, I would ask if there are any council members who have anything additional that hasn't been said yet about any of these options we've discussed going into this debate. Otherwise, I would say that we go to the roll call if not.
Well, you can speak to your pro, but if there's a con, he could speak to the con.
I see option 2 as suboptimal. I see it better than doing nothing. Because right now you just have the funds just sitting there and they're not being put to use. So if I had to have a choice between doing nothing and option 2, I'd pick option 2. If I had a choice between option 1 and option 2, I would pick option 1. So that's where I'm standing. So if option 2 is the only thing on the floor, I'll be inclined to vote for it because that's the best option available to me at this point.
And I do hear what you're saying, Councilman Starr, and I understand it in giving individuals an option versus going with option 2. But I also heard Councilwoman Basua said that they did consider other alternatives, and after a robust discussion at committee, ultimately determined that the option 2 was the best option to go with, and it went 3-0. So I did take that under consideration. Is there any other discussion on the amendment being proposed? And okay. Can we go to, Madam Clerk, are we able to go to a roll call on the vote on the option 2 motion?
Councilmember Perallo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Perez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilman Starr?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Teran?
Yes.
Councilwoman Basua?
Yes.
Mayor MacArthur?
Yes, but
The motion carries 7-0.
Councilmember, Pearl, were you going to say something?
I think that when we have these long drawn out, I think it'll be best and it will serve to make her life, our city clerk's life better. We repeat exactly what we're voting on at the time that we vote. Just my one council, 1 out of 7's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for asking. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is item J3, City Manager Department, consideration of request by Councilmember Starr to eliminate the City Council committee structure. The recommendation that the City Council, 1, discuss the request by Councilman Starr to eliminate the City Council committee structure, and 2, determine if it wishes to direct staff to bring back an ordinance repealing Oxnard City Code Section 2-1.1 regarding the establishment of City Council committees. Any council members have any questions of staff on this item?
Well, in this case, this is actually, though I appreciate that staff made a presentation, this is actually my item of business, so I think I'd like to make my own little presentation. I've asked the city clerk to pass out at least what I'm looking at so that you can see.
Thank you.
So at the very top is the chart of who was on what committee over the years, from looking at the minutes. And
Mayor, I need to address something.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
Councilman Pro, sure.
I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, Councilman Starr, but when you give us a packet this big,
I'm
it'll take a
going
couple of minutes.
to
Let
get
me
you.
finish, please.
Sure.
Thank you, and I apologize, but let me
okay.
finish. And you expect us to digest it,
Nope.
understand it, evaluate it, and then think what we're looking at. If you have the opportunity to put something together, and a lot of work went into this, obviously, Get it to us earlier. That's my only point. Thank you.
That's fine. Work with me on this, and I think you'll be fine with this. So basically, the purpose of the documents here is just to basically back up what I'm saying, that it's true. So basically, when these committees were first formed 6 years ago, in 2018, people imagined, I think, that staff would make committee presentations offering multiple options to weigh, and that council committee members would direct staff to go back and revise those proposals so that they could be perfected before reaching the city council. But people thought that the public would take advantage of the opportunity to weigh in on a proposal early in the process, to the extent at least those meetings were not held during the middle of the workday. And I think our experience has not matched those expectations. I mean, I noticed that members of the public would rarely attend committee meetings, which is a complaint that Bert Perrell has actually voiced to me. I saw agenda items where the committee is asked to receive and file a report where no action is possible other than to forward the item to the full council. I mean, absolutely nothing for the committee to do in that case. I saw very few instances where staff offered multiple options to the committee's consideration. But I never saw an instance where a committee expanded the number of options offered to the full city council. So it's normally the case that a staff presentation recorded in advance of the committee meeting states that it's both for the committee meeting and the upcoming council meeting. I became concerned that we were incurring additional costs for these meetings for interpreters, videographers, and we're making staff endure sitting through a redundant meeting that will only be repeated at a council meeting. That has no real value, and that needlessly keeps them away from their families at night. So I eventually realized that also that this creates a Brown Act minefield, because in the absence of the committee system, a council member could speak with up to 2 of his colleagues, as long as, up to 3, right? Can't do 4, on a matter that will come before a meeting, since, of course, 4 makes a majority. But with a formal committee system in hand, 2 people form a majority of a legislative body, so it's possible that speaking with just 1 person would be a violation of the Brown Act. And this is particularly problematic for the mayor, because the mayor typically serves on each of the committees. So there will be times where he's going to wonder, can I talk to any of my fellow members of the council outside of a notice meeting? So a little history here, and this is why I'm giving you the backup here. So the council committees were established on November 13th, 2018. And at that time, and that's why I just have this here, just so you know that it really happened on November 13th. We had set it up with 5 committees at the time, not 3 as it is today, but there were 5 at the time. Part of the proposal that was adopted was that bylaws had to be adopted. So when were the bylaws adopted? The bylaws were adopted on the next document, which is resolution number 15286. That was adopted almost a year later, in December 2019. So we started off operating without bylaws at all. The reason why I wanted to bring this to you a little bit is bylaws. I do want to point out a few things in the bylaws just so you're aware. First of all, it spells out that there's 5 committees here, and those bylaws have not been changed, by the way. Those are our bylaws today. So our bylaws are just completely out of date. One thing that I want to point out to you is Article 2, Section G, so that's on the next page there. It says, unless specifically provided in this article or by separate council resolution, the powers and duties of a committee shall be limited to receiving reports for which no formal action is required and providing recommendations on items of business to be formally acted upon by the city council. In other words, it's only, no matter what, it's going to the city council unless I guess city management pulls it. So you're looking at reports for which no formal action is required. So you're spending time doing that. I have no idea why. I think that it can just as easily go in front of the full council. And you're really not in a position to changed the committee report. It's just going on to the city council with your recommendation to either adopt staff's recommendation or not. I think another thing that I just wanted to point out to you is I think there's this assumption that somehow, you get seated on a committee and then we're kind of done, but that's not the way our bylaws are written. If you look at Article 3, B, it says the term of a member shall be 2 years. So what I've noticed, kind of looking through all of the, looking through the table, I noticed that we made appointments in January of 2021, 2 years later. And that was when actually the committee system was changed from 5 members to 3 members.
5 committees to 3 committees.
I'm sorry, 5 committees to 3 committees, that's late. I couldn't find anywhere in the minutes where 2 years later, there were new people or a selection made of people to populate these committees. It looks like for a couple years, we were operating without really anybody occupying these seats in reality. And the bylaws have never been updated. And it turns out that the ordinance itself, when we changed from 5 to 3 committees back in 2021, we didn't update the ordinance saying that it would be from 5 to 3. It was just a recommendation by the city manager. It happened, it was done. Maybe it was seen as some sort of temporary measure. I have no idea. But it wasn't until the last document, almost 3 years later, that we actually updated our ordinance to say that there would be 3. So it just seems to me that, I've listened to the arguments that this saves time. I actually did analysis as to whether it saves time or not. I know that when I compare pre-Measure M to post-Measure M, the last 6 months before Measure M went into effect, the typical council meeting was ending at 10:42 p.m. And of those 11 meetings, 8 ran past 10 p.m., 4 ran past 11 p.m. During the 6 months after Measure M went into effect, also with the committees in place, there were 11 meetings. Average ending time was 9:07 p.m., like an hour and a half earlier. And only one of those meetings ran past 10 p.m. So I do think that we've saved a lot of time because of Measure M, not because of committees. I think really the decision here today is this: there's some downsides if we don't go down this road. I mean, if we don't eliminate what I think are pointless standing committees, here's what we lose. We lose money because it costs money for interpreters, videographers, anyone else we pay on an hourly basis. We will divert staff resources to unproductive activity, which keeps them from spending time with their families or working on tasks that better serve the community. We will lose, or at least delay, the input of 4 of us when an item is brought to a committee of 3 instead of a council of 7. I sincerely believe that 7 of us combined are smarter than just 3 of us. And by the way, this doesn't prevent us from creating an ad hoc committee whenever we want. If we didn't have standing committees, if I said, I've got this proposal, but I would really like to sit down with Gabe Teran and Bert Perello to flesh it out. We could always have a committee of 3 come together on anything that we think needs more analysis that, it just wasn't really ready for the council to consider. So we never lose that. I think the last thing I'll leave you with is this. We're not making a decision today. We're making a decision as to whether staff should bring back something to us at a future date. And what I would propose is that we do direct staff to come back with an ordinance that basically deletes this section from the code, but that they not bring it back to us until April. Because I want us to actually live under the committee system, because 4 of us have never been under this committee system. I want all 7 of us together to live under the committee system And by the time staff comes back with this proposal where we can consider it, then we can weigh that and go, all right, is this really a good use of our time or is it not? So that's what I'm proposing here today. You're not making a decision today to get rid of committees. You're making a decision to go forward with the committees we have for now, and in April, consider whether we need to get rid of them. So that's, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. This has already been provided to the city clerk, Councilmember Starr.
Yeah,
Thank you.
multiple copies, yeah.
Okay, just since it's a matter of public record, I do want to make a correction to this.
Thank you.
Stated for as of 2021, appointments made 1/5/21.
Yep.
For Finance and Governance, I see Chair Zaragoza, Gabby Basua, and then myself. I was actually appointed to the City Council on February 4th, 2021. My first committee meeting was February 9th, 2021. So if this is a matter of public record, just to have that correction on there.
You are right.
That being said, thank you for,
I think what I was looking at the end of 2021. I was simply making a note that the appointments were made on January 5th, 2021, but you're right.
understood, thank you. To a couple of the points that you had there, I appreciate the work that's put into this, as Councilmember Perello brought up as well. I think myself and my colleagues can certainly speak for themselves, but just speaking for myself, something like this would have certainly been appreciated at least 72 hours ahead of the meeting to look through, digest. Even better after, as these are published 12 days ahead of the meeting, I'm sure the public would have appreciated these being out as soon as they possibly could be. And that's not a criticism, but just a request for future consideration. When public documents and information is being presented to us and to the public, it's going to be at a live meeting. That being said, looking at the ending times of the meetings, as you had stated, pre-measure M and post-measure M, this is just a statement of fact. Would we look at the measurements too of the average end time for our council meetings before December 11th, 2024 and after December 11th, 2024? I bring that up because we're having a robust discussion and going over all these items, but as one of the speakers had mentioned, a lot of the items that are on info consent were vetted by the Public Works and Transportation Committee. And while anyone who's not in that committee can certainly view that, I watch the other committee meetings from YouTube outside of my own committee meeting, and I review the materials knowing that they will come to us in the future. But I want to see what my colleagues, what questions came up, what questions I had that may have been asked that weren't asked. And 9 times out of 10, they're hit on. But when we look at the things that are vetted through committee, the idea is truly to have, especially the routine items, be vetted so they can be on info consent and sent to the council for consideration. If we'd like to call them out, we can for specific questions. But otherwise, it goes through, and I think that's where we try to find the efficiency in this. In Finance and Governance, we have items that come to us that are regular updates or are items that are fiscal in nature, such as our annual comprehensive financial report, our single audit reports. These are important things that I think is the public benefits from getting an additional 7 days to see and review the materials. And so I think it was mentioned in the presentation and in the staff report that because of the sunshine ordinance, we get 12 days that these are published.
That's right.
In the shortest possible timeline, if it were published for the committee meeting immediately prior to that, you could get about 19 days to review those things. If it's the case where it's going to be, it comes to committee and then maybe the following month it goes to the council, the public gets all of that time to review it, and anything that comes from committee on revisions or direction to staff between committee and council, they see that happen and know to expect it when it comes, and it's all on the public record. I think the committees serve a very important purpose and function in being able to not only be more efficient with these particular council meetings, but give the public an additional early opportunity to see what it is that's coming down the pipeline, how it can be discussed in a smaller setting with the council committee members, and they can speak on it, they can review the items 7 days ahead of time, digest it, speak on it, and even give their recommendations to the committee before it goes to the council.
So couldn't
And
you?
I'm almost done.
Okay.
I can't think of specific items now, and I'm looking to Councilwoman Basua, but I can say, maybe, I appreciate you probably didn't have the time to review 3 years' worth of committee meetings.
Right.
But there have been instances at Finance and Governance where either we discuss something and ask staff to, or direct staff to shift that or change it to go before it goes to council, or members of the public have stated something that we say, oh, you know what, that's actually a great consideration. Can we incorporate that on its way to council? And had that committee system not been in place, if it was just to the council, would the public have had that type of opportunity to see those items that early ahead of time? So as a operational piece of what we do here on the Oxnard City Council and looking at staff time, I understand the thoughts on that, but whether we do 4 council meetings a month, 3 council meetings a month, or 2 council meetings a month and 2 committee meetings, staff is dedicated and they're here anyways. I see them still here. And the ones who were here for all the items we discussed tonight, they stayed till the end until their item was done. And then they were excused. That is what they are hired and paid and entrusted by the public to do. And so regardless of what type of meeting it is, they're here anyways. So but I appreciate the information, but I think that the public has also weighed in, and I think we got emails about it, regarding their views on the council-committee system. So.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pessoa?
Thank you. I thank Mr. Starr for the paperwork. Thank you. I appreciate it. I perused it really quickly. I have to say that tonight's meeting is a great example on why we need to stay with committee meetings. And let me tell you why. Mr. Starr had a lot of good questions that could have been vetted in committee meetings. Staff reports could have been changed in order to accommodate his request, and we would not be here on this item at 11:55, almost on a Wednesday morning. This is exactly why today is a great example on why we need to stay in committees. It would allow all of us, not only Mr. Starr, all of us, to ask those questions and make these council meetings run a lot smoother. So I think today
I'd like
is...
to ask you a question, though, if I may.
But let me finish. That's a great, to me, today is a great example on why we should stay in committees. Mr. Starr did say April. I'm going to go a little bit further than that. That only gives us about 8 meetings or so. You know what? Let's go let's give this a year. If you all feel that in 5 months it's not working and it's just not effective, by all means, we can definitely bring it back. But I think that you will find that they're very informative. It's with 3 of us, so smaller, smaller for us to be able to get more one-on-one attention with staff. But it also allows staff the opportunity to get those changes, answer those questions before it comes back to the entire council. On another note, there has been instances where we just killed it in committee, didn't come to the entire council. One was when we were going to staff recommended the outsourcing of business license. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it business license? Was it?
Which one was that? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that died.
It died.
The
It came
Carnegie
back-
Museum proposal also
So
died.
it came back to us, I believe, twice. We had questions, we sent it back, came back again. It died there. It didn't come back. We've had numerous instances where we just killed it in committee. It was just, but I think tonight, and I would just want to reiterate, tonight is a good reason why we should stay in this committee. So,
Thank you, Councilwoman, so I appreciate your insight. I want to recognize
Yeah.
Councilwoman
I have
Rodriguez.
just a few clarifying questions, Mr. Chair. So I look forward to checking out the committees and at least, experiencing them before we make this decision. So I don't know where we came up with April or a year, but just even having a better understanding. I know the item was on the agenda. I didn't hear any public speakers on that specific item, so I'd like to hear if folks are either in favor or against keeping committees. I'm all ears. I also was curious, just for clarification, because I haven't actually experienced sitting through the committees, and I'm sure I can watch a million YouTube videos. But when an item is being discussed in committee and it dies before it's shared, should that Brown Act restriction of not being able to discuss with other folks, then is that something that is a positive, or is that something that has, maybe something could have been a good option and it just died in committee and never got to see the day of light? So I think I could see both angles on something dying in committee before even being considered. And again, I trust the colleagues, and you all have been at the table a lot longer than I have, so I'm all ears with that as well.
Sure, now
So-
Curiosity.
So if I may answer, items that have died in community has had a lot of input from the community. So we've had, those items are, items that the community has come out, has given public comment. We've listened, we've asked questions, we've sent it back, they've come back, they still come back, and we're just not, no, and it dies. So we have had input from the community every time something just dies in committee.
Thank you. And I'm eager to hear also, and I appreciate, the insight from the senior members of this council. And I'm eager to hear from Councilmember Perello as well on his experiences. But before we have further discussion on this item, there are 3 speakers on this particular item on J3. We'll recognize Doug Portello, and then followed by Greg Runyon, and lastly, Dan Pinedo.
Well, I could almost say good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning.
I see pros and cons to both sides of the argument, right? So one of my main concerns is that I was on a YouTube channel and I saw 2 videos put out by the city manager, and they were one-sided videos. They showed one side of the argument. And I know a lot of times that's how the city's operated. They've only shown the side that they favor. And I strongly object to that as a voter, as a citizen, as a resident. I want to know who approved those videos. And why was it not able that Mr. Starr and Mr. Nguyen could get together and do a video, one showing one side of it, one showing the other? Because we have a dysfunctional government. I think Reverend Runyon pointed it out. I think our committees are dysfunctional. I think our committees are not efficient, because I've sat through a lot of meetings, and all this stuff about public engagement and the public and all this discussion, that's a fantasy. That is not reality, okay? The only reason we're here late tonight is not because of committees, it's because Aaron Starr is here. That's why. Because he's asking a lot of questions that are normally not asked. It's like staff recommends something, vendors recommend something, and you guys just rubber stamp it. I've sat through finance committees. I've sat through public works. I've sat through all of them on YouTube, in person, mostly on YouTube. And go back and look at those archives of those meetings and see how much substantive discussion was happening. Very, very little. It's not beneficial. It's a waste of time. And here's the other concern I have, is that things are killed in committee. It's not what gets presented in committee and is superficially discussed and then reaches city council for the vote. It's what doesn't make it. That's what concerns me. This is all about control. That's what it's about. Like somebody saying, I have to be on that committee to protect Oxnard. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously kidding me with that statement? No. These committees lead to corruption in the process. And it's really bad. I'm a citizen that's engaged. I'm one of the few. I'm probably a handful of 5 out of 200,000 that'll be here at 11 o'clock at night and care enough for my city and what goes on. You guys a lot don't like Mr. Starr. You don't like his personality. You don't like he sued the city. Fine. But look, he has a right to have his side said, and then you guys will vote accordingly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doug, very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to
Yes,
address
City
that.
Manager.
I'm going to address that because that's just wrong. If you think this is about control, you should go visit a city that actually exercises that kind of control. If we wanted to control everything, there'd be no sunshine ordinance. We would just use the state standard, 72 hours. We could go back to just publishing stuff on Friday afternoons, voluminous binders on Friday afternoons. Good luck with the public reviewing it over the weekend. Good luck with the council members reviewing it over the weekend. Good luck with time to ask staff clarification questions.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to suspend rules to allow the mayor to speak?
This is important because there are allegations made here about corruption.
I get it.
okay.
We have a 7-member committee. We get to speak. And if we want somebody other than the requirements that the public speak, because that's required by law, if we want somebody else to address us, we can.
Yeah.
And with a 2/3 vote, we can do that. So I guess I'll ask for that. Is there a 2/3 vote to recognize the
The presiding
city manager
officer
to speak?
can recognize
I make a
somebody to
motion
speak.
Yeah, do I need to make a motion to recognize the city manager to
Well,
speak, or can I just recognize him?
Mayor, you are the presiding officer, so you can recognize a staff member to speak.
My point is, I don't want the city manager or staff debating us.
I'm sorry,
Well, I
say
just-
that again? Can you say that again?
I don't want the city manager or staff debating us. The policy decision happens here, but we're welcome to certainly solicit
Sure, and I'm-
information. I'm simply saying that I don't want to see the city manager as some sort of 8th council member here.
No, thank you, Councilman.
I don't get to
Starr.
vote.
I
No,
recognize.
but no one else
Okay,
gets to debate.
Okay, hold on a second.
Right, but I'm
what
still
you're
the
doing-
city manager and I still have input.
Hold on a second.
Only if we allow it.
We heard Doug, and I recognized the city manager. He thought it was important enough to make a comment, and so I
Yeah,
recognized.
when there's
You
an
need to make that
allegation
comment.
about corruption, I think it's important to address it.
I'd be willing to make a motion to allow the city manager to speak. 2/3 of us can do that.
City attorney, do we need to make a motion to allow him to speak, or can I just recognize him to be able to?
Well, was Councilman Starr making a point of order regarding your allowing the city manager to speak?
Is that what you're
It's
doing?
early to debate.
Okay, well,
Okay.
well, if your clarification, city attorney, is that it's sufficient enough for me to recognize him to speak, then. I
Correct,
recognize
and
him to speak.
if a member of the body doesn't agree with your action as a presiding officer, then they can make a point of order on that.
Okay, so then can I just make a motion to?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer to you. Would you like to hear the city manager?
I want to hear
Fine.
what the city manager has to say, and I recognize you, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my point is, we have the sunshine ordinance. We get the information out 12 days in advance, not 72 hours in advance. That's the opposite of trying to control anything. So it's ludicrous to make that allegation. Then the committee system, as Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Duran pointed out, adds 7 days to that. Now, I would argue that we have options in our staff reports, but we still make recommendations. That's our job. Now, to make the assumption or the assertion that everything's a rubber stamp and that we're dysfunctional because the council agrees with staff's recommendations most of the time is also ludicrous. What do you want? A council that's staff work that produces disagreements all the time? You know, perhaps it's also a sign of a functioning government and higher quality staff work that has come out over the years. Have some perspective here. You want to go back and look at videos of city council meetings? Go back to 2014, 15, 16, 17. Let's have a little bit longer perspective here than the moment when you decided to pay attention. Go back and look, have a longer view. So we have a very open process here. We will present the options. We will also present our professional recommendations, and we can discuss them, we can explain them, and you always reserve the right to vote the way you want. So you don't have to go with our recommendation. That's on you as a body. But to make the allegation that we're controlling this, that's outrageous, because I've seen cities and administrations that are very controlling. This is the opposite here. But hey, if you want to go back to the state standard of 72 hours, we can play that game. I don't recommend it, though. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, what I hear is there's just a lot of passion here. I mean, we certainly all really care. Doug, certainly, his comments, we all care. You can see the passion just flowing through this room. And I think that's important. I think diversity of thought and ideas and conflict is good. It's healthy. It's a healthy government. So I just want to say just that night, I know Councilwoman Rodriguez
I would
had a
just,
comment.
Mayor, if I can, we were in the middle of public speakers. Councilmember Perillo was next, and then Councilwoman Councilwoman Rodriguez. And so I'll defer to you on if you'd like to continue with the speakers or go back to our council members here.
I just want to recognize Councilmember Rodriguez, and then we'll go back to our speaker list.
I'm happy to go back to speakers. My additional comment or recommendation was if our bylaws are out of compliance for committees, maybe we want to consider those updates.
Thank you. Councilmember Perillo?
I'd like to clarify a mistake that the city manager made. For those of you that haven't paid attention, have never showed up, or have never been on a council, including some of the two older ones with me. It used to be 72 hours, but the city shut down on Friday. So you got it Thursday night. City's closed Friday, there's nobody to ask a question, and you are meeting on Tuesday. The weekend, you can't ask anybody. And the city has staff that's working on Monday. They're not there to babysit you, change our diapers. The Sunshine thing and everything that he's done is terrific. And the accusation by a member of the public to call it corrupt, in the old days, something would have happened on something like that. But it's a gutless statement for the member of the public to call it corrupt because you're implying something you don't have the balls to say. You didn't. You chicken shitted it. And you can also, you can also run for council, which you've done, and you lost.
You can't back and forth with them, Bert.
Okay. Let's,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Let's bring order back to the meeting.
City of what's going on. I don't even know why I need to be here.
I'd
you,
like
Mr.
to speak
Pearl.
after everybody speaks.
Let's go back to our speaker list. The next one is Mr. Greg Runyon, and he's followed by Dan Pinedo. Mr. Runyon?
Hi, yeah, I'm, can you guys, I hope you can hear. So after hearing that conversation, and also in lieu of what I just shared earlier, I believe what we're supposed to be talking about is committees, not personalities, not politics, committees. And I am going to say this to all of you. You guys need to figure out how to have order, because if I interrupted as much as you did in my own home, my wife would slap me. You guys need to get some order, and that's why committees are imperative. Meetings are not meant to be dominated by one person, one party, or one belief. And the committee is what it does. The committee listens, they make a recommendation, and then we're supposed to get back together. It is now just about 12:15. Without a committee, without presentations. And I really meant what I said about we all need to work together and everything else. But it ain't cool when the city manager is supposed to be making a presentation and a councilman beats him to it and drops his own presentation before the city manager can speak. That's not the way this government works. It's not a city council run. We're a city manager run city. And you guys need to have committees. You really do, because that's going to help some of you to learn how this goes. And I'm sorry to speak with this passion, but all of you are leaders in this city, and your decorum and the way you behave is what people are going to look at. The headline is not going to be what was spoken today. It's going to be about the outburst and the language that was used. So please, in all sincerity, look into the committees, work with what you got. If you want to try to fix it later, fix it. This isn't a teardown. This isn't an NFL franchise where you go rip it from the bottom up. This is a city that was in really bad straits, because I've been in those meetings in 2008 and 2009 that went to 2 or 3 in the morning. And they argued about stuff that you all are, but they were a lot nicer doing it. So please, I pray for you, except I know that wouldn't fly with some people. But please, get it together. Committees are a simple thing. Govern our city. Take care of it. We need all of your voices. We need all of your politics to be set aside. We just need your abilities and your presence to be there. So thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Greg. Mr. Piñero?
Mayor, council members, and Dan Pineda, resident of the city of Oxnard. And Mayor Pro Tem's comments on the rationale for committees was right on. And Councilman Stars demonstrated why we need committees. In the interest of expediency, I urge you to reject this proposal to eliminate the council committees. It concerns me that sometimes the consent agenda is voted in bulk with several contracts that get no discussion. They can have that discussion in committees. I believe that it is to the best interest of expediency for council members to have that robust study of the issues in committees before coming to the city council as a whole. In Congress, bills are discussed in committees, and then they go before the House of Representatives or the Senate floor for further examination, discussion, amendments, and votes. The outcome of the committee discussions brings about greater transparency, since we are unable to see the presentations at council meetings due to the Measure M. So please support keeping the committee structure as it is. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Piñero.
Mayor, we have 2 virtual speakers, so we'll move on with caller ending in 6377. Please press *6 to unmute and introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes starting now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is Manuel Herrera. You know, I just want to remind everybody, just hang in there, because in 6 months, Aaron Starr will be eligible for a recall. So if you can hang in there for just 6 months, then hopefully I can relieve you all of this pain that you're enduring. So another thing I wanted to bring up is, why is it that the city manager presented his video regarding this topic as per Measure M, but Aaron Starr gets to do his presentation live? And then in his presentation, he gave the example of pre-Measure M meetings versus post-Measure M meetings, saying, you know, they weren't that lengthy in time. What he didn't factor in is that he wasn't in those meetings. He's the reason why we're here. It's 12:18 a.m. on Wednesday. He's the reason. And although Mr. Runyon, and with all due respect, he's blaming the entire council for their behavior, well, that was just the symptom. The cause of all this chaos, once again, is Aaron Starr. So, you know, everybody warned this council, this staff, what was coming with Aaron Starr. And, you know, he has proven everybody correct. He made an excellent case for why we need committee meetings. So it's so funny and ironic that I shouldn't even have to say anything because he made the case for me. You know, and Councilwoman Basua, she caught that right away, that he is the reasons why we have to keep the committee meetings. He's the reason. And, you know, it's so funny how we don't even have to make the case ourselves. Aaron Starr, just let him talk and he will hang himself like he always does. So I too did the research. I too looked at the city manager's video. I saw, you know, the entire presentation, and I couldn't find one single reason why we should eliminate the committee meetings. Not one single reason. So, you know, the fact that he wants to eliminate these, you know, Starr, it makes absolutely no sense. And like I said, he made a case of why they should be kept. If he has questions, then by all means, he can join every committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera, for calling in and for your comments. Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers, or was he the last one?
Mayor, we have one more, a caller ending in 9665. Please press star 6 to unmute, introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you. This is Barbara Macri Ortiz. Good night, good morning, whatever. Yeah. I just want to share something because I have been dealing with city council since 1990. As a housing advocate, I've been to a lot of meetings. I've seen our council through the good times and the bad times. Primarily, those early ones were really the bad times. And I can honestly say that the city now is running more efficiently than it has ever run in the past. And part of that is due to the committees. Committees allow for more review, for more participation, for more efficiency. And it's a better use of each one of your council members' time. You know, I can remember when council meetings went until 1 and 2 in the morning. It looks like you're trying to repeat that. But the productivity was very low. As it is right now, people are getting tired. And so, you know, what Alex has done, or the city manager has done, through the systems that he's created, and in particular, he has forced the city council to be the decision makers. The history in this town back in the day was the city manager and a few of the council members would decide what they wanted. They would control the staff reports, and all we would get was what that plan was. And that's, you know, that's why we ended up with the DA going through all of our records. What Alex has done is give some real respect to the city council members, because he makes sure that the burden is placed on your shoulder to make decisions. And to make those responsibly, he's giving you the tools. And those committee meetings are a very important tool. What I have heard from Councilman Starr tonight has really been all form over substance. And, you know, the game is not to come in and pick all the little things apart. The game is to get in there, understand what the issues are, and do what's best for the citizens. And that was on that option 1 and option 2 on the earlier discussion was, okay, do we want to give benefits to a few people, or do we want to spread the benefits to as many people as we can? That's a policy decision. And I think the decision that was made was correct. But the decisions are the council's to make. But you better get yourselves educated so you
Thank
can
you.
make those decisions.
Thank you, Barbara.
And the committee meetings,
Thank you. I think we're
is
out
what
of
will
time.
help you.
Thank you for your call. We're out of time. Madam Clerk, is there any additional speakers?
That concludes all of our speakers, both in person and virtually.
Thank you. If there are no additional speakers, so what do we have on the table here, Councilmember Starr? What are you proposing?
I mean, it sounds like we're willing to look at this at a later.
Microphone.
I'm hearing, at least from my right, that we're willing to look at a motion like this at a later date, just a question of when. And I'm going to say right up front that you guys may be completely right. You may think, maybe committees are the best thing since sliced bread. And the 7 of us together are going to learn that over the next few months. And if you think that, 3 months is not long enough for us to be able to come to a conclusion whether this is good or not, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe it's 4 months, maybe it's 5. I don't think it has to be a year. I think we're all smart people in this dais. We're going to figure out pretty quickly what works and what doesn't. So I guess I would ask, what's your pleasure? What would you like the number of months to be before this goes in front of us? And at that point, we'll be able to make an educated decision based on our experience.
Yes, Councilwoman.
May I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I want to just address a few things, but I will address Councilmember Starr's question. Today, a speaker called, at least I felt, called corrupt, and I'm assuming it was directed towards me, Perello, and Tehran, because we're the ones that are still sitting here. That's a very, very harsh word, and I'd like to make sure we have evidence of that, because then we 3 don't deserve to be here. We probably deserve to be in jail. So that word is very harsh. The other thing I want to address is when I meant in my comments, which were very heated on our first meeting, and I do want to apologize because my behavior was out of control. I was taken, I was taken just by surprise with everything happening. What I meant when I said I need to stay on this committee in order to protect Oxnard, what I meant by that was I need to stay on this committee in order to protect not only our residents, but our staff. If we continue down this road, we will be a dysfunctional council and we will get nothing accomplished. That's not the legacy I want to leave. It really isn't. And we all have our opinions, and we all, I'm sure, have, very strong points. But I think that we have to say what we feel, we have to move on, and we have to be respectful, But if we continue down this path of attacking our staff, of back and forth, we're not going to have staff. We're going to be dysfunctional. We're not going to accomplish anything. Right now, this city is in the best position to do so much good for the citizens that we serve. And if we continue down this path, we are not going to get anywhere. The other comment that I want to address from the speaker was that we were complacent, that we don't ask questions. I can see how that can be seen as that. I don't ask questions because I don't have questions to ask. If I do have questions to ask, and maybe this is where we need to be a little bit more vocal, I send an email out to get my questions answered. I do get questions that arise when somebody's speaking, and then I'll ask a question. But I look at a staff report. Okay, I understand a lot of the questions that were asked today by Mr. Starr were very good questions, but I knew 95% of those answers. So I don't ask those questions. And I'm sure, some of my council members might also know. And I'm sure our mayor, when there's police things that come up, he won't have a lot of questions because he'll know. That's where he comes from. But it doesn't mean that we're not engaged. We actually are very, very engaged. And I want to make sure that at least I address that, because if it does seem that I don't ask a question, it's because I really don't have one. I'm okay with what staff is presenting. Other than that, I agree with Councilmember Rodriguez that we should look at the bylaws and look to see what needs to be addressed and have those bring that back to us. And as far as bringing when it's a good time for us to revisit the subject, I'm going to leave that really up to our new council members. I've experienced the committees. I believe they work. I'm happy with them. I think that you will find a lot of benefit from them. I think Mr. Starr will find a lot of benefit from them, all of you. And if that's not the case, by all means, ask for it to come back. But I really think we need to give it a try. And I think that insulting each other, even though I know I'm one to talk, isn't going to work. If we really want to do good for this community, we really need to get off our high horses. We really need to, listen to each other, understand that we're all going to have different questions, but the one thing that we all have in common, and I know this is the one thing we all have in common, is that we want what's best for Oxnard. We have our different ideas of what that looks like, but we all want the best, what's for Oxnard. And I hope that we can, not have, if we have to go past 12, we've done it before. Back in 2018, 19, when we had a lot of tough decisions to make, this was us. But I'm hoping that we can, move on and figure this out and understand that we're all different, and we're just going to move on.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilwoman Basua, for those. I actually appreciate that the speaker brought up about Mr. Starr's number of questions tonight. As you had stated, and I agree, they were questions that are important, but also lend themselves to the committee system, where those questions and that level of detail can happen within those hour-and-a-half meetings. So that way, that's on the public record. It's been asked. That time has been dedicated to those agenda items. So that way, and this is a structure I've used for myself, when it does come to the full council, I only need to ask the few questions that need to be repeated for the public. And I've stated it when staff comes up. I say, I know we stated this at committee. Would you mind explaining A, B, C, X, Y, Z for the benefit of the public? And when I'm up here, 9 out of 10 times, the questions I ask of staff, I know the answers to it, and I've probably already discussed it with staff, but they're important to me that the public understands that what we're doing up here is their business, it's their tax dollars, and it's the governance of the city and community they live in. And I want to be clear as day and recorded on all these cameras and in the minutes that when this came up, this question was asked, so that if it ever comes up again, oh yeah, we talked about that. And here it is on the public record at this timestamp. And with the speaker pointing out the questions that Councilmember Starr brought up and saying, well, we're here this late because he's asking the questions that need to be asked. I'm glad he said that, because I was worried that he was going to say something that was said about myself and Councilmember Perello, for sure myself, that I ask questions because I don't prepare for the meetings, where, I must not read the staff report because I ask questions that are easily answered by the staff report. And that's obviously not the case. And I actually addressed that in a public email between another member of the public who mentioned this. I said, no, think about it, that I go through the staff reports, I prep, and I ask those questions so they're on the public record. And I agree that if Councilmember Starr is doing the same thing, there's a need for that. But again, the committee system lends itself to having those happen at that time. So these larger council meetings, those already vetted, more routine items, we can go right through those and say what needs to be said for the public. And if people want more detail, they can go to the recording of the committee meeting. The last thing I'll say is just pointing out, and the irony in the discussion we've had tonight with the phrase bang for the buck, all the questions tonight that could have been handled through the committee extended the length of the meeting, understandably. But in bang for the buck, we had a consultant here tonight who was doing a presentation who was on the clock the entire time he's here. And had those questions been vetted through committee first, and we've been more pointed in our time on info consent tonight and in the previous meeting on December 17th, that consultant might have been in and out quicker than the time that we had him here. And there's nothing against Mr. Yee. I loved this presentation. It was great. But anytime a consultant here, we're not just talking about staff time and our contracted interpreters, but we often have consultants on Zoom or in the audience here to do work. And as long as he was here, he was on the clock. And more power to him. He does great work. He knows what he's talking about, and I enjoyed the presentation. But I just wanted to point that out, that when we extend these meetings, these are all the ripple effects that happen from that. So those are the efficiencies we're looking for if we're talking about bang for the buck as well. I believe those are all my comments. As it gets later, my speech and my ability to process what I'm saying slows down as well. So thank you.
Same with me. I do have a question. So I've heard that, oh, I can handle this at the committee. Well, let me ask you a question. Let's say we have a committee with 3 members. Let's say I'm not one of those members. Can I actually go to that committee meeting and be asking questions and participate? No, because it would violate the Brown Act. So it's not possible for me to work through the committee system on a committee that I'm not even on.
May I make a recommendation, Mr. Starr?
I'm sorry, what?
May I make a recommendation to you? Something that I do, because I can't go and speak at him. I would love to. And the city attorney told me first meeting when I said, oh, can I make a comment at Public Works? No, absolutely not. That would violate the Brown Act.
That's right.
But I can prep myself and review the items because they come out 7 days ahead of time. And I can ask the staff, hey, I have a question about this. I can watch the committee meeting and see what questions are asked and are not asked and follow up with staff on that. So I'm prepped when that ultimately does come to the council if that committee forwards it there. So, can I get up and speak at the podium? No, absolutely not. That's inappropriate. But it helps me as a council member prepare for that item when it comes to the full council and the time in between.
Let me intercede real quick to recognize Councilwoman Perez.
I just have a question, and I'm not sure who this question should go to, but I'm curious if an item comes to committee and it doesn't make it out of the committee, could it ever be returned back to that committee if it is revised?
By whom?
Yes, we've had items where the committee said, go work on it some more and bring it back. Yeah.
Thank you. I just appreciate Councilwoman Basua for clarifying that. And it's my job here too to make sure, and I will always exemplify professional decorum, right? Conflict is good, as I mentioned. Diversity of thought is welcomed, but we should always exemplify certainly respect for each other. There's a lot of capacity up here. You've got a doctoral candidate here, you've got controller here, you've got a housing director there, and certainly Mr. Perello and all the knowledge he brings with his seniority, Michaela, her eagerness, Mayor Pro Tem, myself. So there's a tremendous amount of talent up here and a lot of capacity. And we all just have to build consensus, work good with each other so that we can be efficient. And we have just a sensational staff here. And I certainly know it, having been in this city for 35 years. So let me just try to condense some of this discussion. I'm sorry, Councilwoman. Yes, go ahead.
If it's possible, and just kind of reflecting, I think, decreasing public input. We're here because we're entrusted by the public, and I think giving people the opportunity to have multiple opportunities to provide input is important, rather than decreasing the public's opportunity and not making it available for them at all to be able to provide an additional opportunity to provide input. And in that case, I'm curious if it's possible for me to make the motion to reject this item to eliminate the city council committee structure.
You don't have to, because if we don't pass any motion at all, it has the same effect.
Second that motion.
All right, I'll amend the motion then. I'll amend the motion that we have city staff come back with a proposal to end the committee system and bring it back in 6 months, so in July. That'll give us an opportunity. It is July, right? It's late. It'll 6 months. 6 months. It'll give us an opportunity to work under this system. I know I see you're shaking your head, Councilmember. But I think that if it's so obvious, I think that we'll come to that conclusion pretty quickly on our own. So I guess I'm asking my council members who are the, let's call them the classic council members, because you've been here a little while. We got the new folks on the block here. I'm just losing my train of thought here. You're pretty firm in your position, and I get that. It's based on your experience. Do you believe that if I have the same experience that you have over the next 6 months, that do you think that I'm going to come to the same conclusion as you?
Yes, and this is Councilmember Perillo.
It could be.
Anyone else?
Could be any one of you. Okay. Any one of you who's actually who's classic.
Asking that question to me?
Sure. So
I don't believe you're going to change your views.
Okay.
I've known you since before I got on council, and you haven't changed your views. And I respect you. You're tenacious. You stick to your guns.
It's true.
But in your first conversation with me, you mentioned we can do better for a city manager and a city attorney. We can do better by doing away with pensions for city employees. I totally disagree. You haven't changed from the first time I met you. And I got on the council in 13. So I met you in 12. Do I think you'll change in 6 months? Not a chance in hell.
Okay.
Well, we have an amendment here. Is there a second to that amendment that Councilmember Starr has proposed? If there's no second, can we go to a vote on the motion, the second that was made?
Madam Clerk, can you please repeat the motion that Councilmember Perez made?
Thank you. Councilmember Perillo.
So the motion is out of order. The motion is out of order because defeating the motion would be the same thing as adopting the motion. If you adopt or defeat the motion, you get the same result. So for that reason, under Roberts, this is an improper motion. All you have to do is just let my motion die, you're done, and you move on to the next item of business.
City Attorney, can you provide some clarification?
Mayor, Mr. Starr, your motion didn't get a second, so it died.
I get it.
So we're having her motion, but I'm asking so that you don't make a mistake, or none of the rest of us make a mistake, and we hear it right from the city clerk, what are we voting on? I hope you understand it. I'm doing it in plain English. I hope you understand it.
Well, we can just get some clarity with the city attorney, then we can have the Madam Clerk read back what it is that we're voting on. Yes, sir.
So I believe Councilwoman Perez's motion was to reject bringing back an ordinance to repeal section 2-1.1 and so basically reject getting rid of the committee system. And if I'm wrong, correct me, please.
That's correct. You're correct.
Okay. And she can make that motion.
Right, and it was seconded by Councilmember Perillo, but you had Councilmember Starr make an amendment. I'm sorry, we didn't get okay. So do we have to go to a vote on that motion, or because his died, do we have to take a vote at all?
So his motion to amend died for lack of a second. So now you have Councilwoman Perez's motion that did have a second.
And whether it's adopted or not, you get the same outcome, right? Which is why it's an improper motion.
What he's saying is it's unnecessary.
It's unnecessary.
What he is saying is that the motion would be unnecessary.
You're done, is what I'm saying.
And if I can, Mayor.
Yes, Mayor.
I understand this possibly Robert's Rules technical term to call it an improper motion, but I mean, there are certainly agenda items where we have a receive and file, and there's no action required, but I've seen bodies, including this one, take a vote on whether to receive and file that. We have a motion and a second to receive and file. Okay, we all vote yes. Okay, it's received and filed. So if the councilwoman has made a motion which aligns with recommendation number 2, on the staff report, determine if the council wishes to direct staff to bring back an ordinance repealing Oxnard Code Section 2-1.1 regarding the establishment of the city council committees. It sounds like her motion, which has been seconded by Councilmember Perillo, is that we will not be directing staff to bring back an ordinance to repeal that. Is that correct, Councilwoman Perez?
That's correct.
So what is the effect of the motion if it were to fail?
Well, the item itself, if I can, Mayor, is to determine if it wishes to direct staff. So she is definitively saying, no, don't direct staff to bring this back. And therefore, keep the committee system.
So we can just adopt it, we don't have to go to a vote?
No, that's the motion, and that's germane to the item that's stated on the agenda. So it is a proper motion in that sense.
Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilwoman Perez.
And for the record, just so that people are clear and the public is clear, the reason why my stance is the way it is because I believe that it's important to not decrease public input. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Madam Clerk, can we take a vote?
Councilman Starr,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Teran,
Yes.
Councilwoman Basua,
Aye.
Mayor MacArthur,
Yes.
Councilmember Perallo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bettis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez.
Yes.
The motion carries 6-1.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, by the way. I really appreciated the conversation. and
Mr.
the
Mayor?
debate.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring back the conversation of the bylaws. Sorry, we don't need to do that right now. I do think it's important that if our bylaws are outdated, then we need to revisit that. So if our committees are not functioning to the best of their ability, how do we get our committees to be as robust as we want them to be?
I think staff's been given direction on that.
That's direction.
Thank you.
We are to the J4, J5. So I think it's J4. So next item on the agenda is item J4. It's the city manager department, subject city council committees. The recommendation of the city council that the mayor propose the appointment of the membership for each of the 3 city council committees, and 2, that the city council consider the approval of the proposed appointments to each of the 3 city council committees. Mr. Nguyen, do you want to make any comments on that at all?
No, I think this is very straightforward.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask a question, though, if that's okay.
Sure. You know, before we go to you, Councilmember Starr, one of the things that, following our first meeting back on December 11th, is I've had some conversations with staff and reviewed our ordinance number 2949, as well as that was signed back on November 13th of 2018, and also the resolution that was passed back on December 3rd, 2019. And one of the things that I observed in there was that the term of a member for a committee shall be 2 years. And to me, that's just simply 2 years. When you consider the definition of term, it is time, it's a time limit, it's time constraint. It doesn't, I don't see any ambiguity as far as it's a minimum, it's just simply a term, much like we look at a prison term or we look at a investment term. And that's, I just want to see if that, my interpretation of that is the interpretation of staff as well. It's a 2-year term. I don't know if you can provide some clarity on that, City Attorney.
Well, all I can say to that is that generally, if an office has a term assigned to it. Typically, it will be that the incumbent serves until the replacement is appointed. That's how it is under the CAG rules, for the Citizen Advisory Committee rules for the city. And, you know, this would be an instance where the ordinance was not followed, but no one raised the issue either. So had that issue been raised, it would have been brought back.
Is it a term limit?
It's not a limit necessarily, it just says 2 years. So again, generally, people serve in the position until their replacement is appointed.
Yeah. I'm just concerned we've been operating out of, I mean, just by the resolution itself, it's very straightforward. It says the term of a member shall be 2 years. So whether it wasn't questioned or whether it wasn't brought up or we just missed it, it's just, to me, I just put it out there, it just, to me, it just reads a term of, should serve 2 years, it's simple as that. Is there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment about that. So Robert's Rules absolutely addresses this. And Robert's Rules recommends that you actually use the term, you can say 1 year or until their successors are elected. If you want to have something that's other than a fixed term, where you want to have a little bit of leeway, you have that language in there. So we can have our bylaws updated to say that. But right now what we have is it's just 2 years. And we were operating without committees without actually populating committees in reality for a couple of years. But it doesn't matter, I guess, because it was completely advisory anyway. It's not like they made any decisions, this councilman. So I don't see any particular harm, but the reality is that it's a 2-year term, and that's all it is a 2-year term. That doesn't mean you can't be elected to multiple terms, but it's a 2-year term.
Thank you, Councilman Starr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. And I'll just say that for the language, 2-year terms, after 2 years, I interpret that as there should have been a reappointment, or council members in a public discussion were free to say, I've had a great time on XYZ committee. I'd love to try ABC committee if the mayor would concur. And that conversation, that agenda item wasn't brought forward. I'm glad that we're having the conversation now. And here we are in January 2025 discussing it. And we will, at the end of this agenda item, if the council concurs, do the appointments for our committees and go from there for a 2-year term. I do appreciate Councilmember Starr's bringing up the language that's in Robert's Rules, and if Councilwoman Rodriguez had mentioned looking at our bylaws, if we want to investigate or explore including similar language in that, it would leave less to interpretation, I guess. It's that it's a 2-year term until appointed or replaced or removed, whatever the case is. So that's just kind of my take on that. When we get to it, I do have some notes regarding the actual recommended appointments, but I'll let other council members discuss this item first if they'd like to.
Before we proceed further on discussions, Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item?
Yes, we have Greg Runyon, who is is on virtual lease. So, Mr. Runyon, if you can press *6 to unmute and please start with your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not going to I'm not going to play a broken record. I think that, I hope all of you will go home and watch this meeting and listen to how people are really pushing to get their own way. And I think that there's a respect and a decorum. I get Robert's Rules of Order, and I know Mayor Pro Tem knows them well. Councilman Starr seems to know them well. But Runyon's rules of orders are that you should love your neighbor as yourself. And that, you know, if you don't say what you don't want anybody else to say back to you. And, you know, as you guys heal from this meeting, I think, Mayor, I don't know if you made your decisions already or if you haven't, but, you know, I think experience on working with the council as well as experience working through conflict is going to be really, really important. Because the truth is, I do want to clarify one thing I said, and then I'll hush up. When I said we are not a city council run government, we're a city manager run government. What I meant by that is the city council does not get to dictate how people do certain things. You are policymakers. You make a lot of decisions that govern the direction and things. But when it comes to the practicalities of finance and all these other things, you can direct the city manager how to do things, but ultimately it's there. And I just pray and hope that all of you are not going to be, and pardon me for using a grown-up word here, you're not going to be so anal that you look at every little thing and every little dot and every little tittle. When Councilwoman Bersua said something, she said, you know, I know 95% of those answers. That's why I don't ask the question. And questions are good when they educate both the public and you. When you ask questions only to educate or to shame, that leads to different things. And the last thing, council needs to get the trust of the people. Trust is not earned, it's given. You have all been entrusted by the citizens, by their votes, and I think by their hopes, because I think you can be a very good council because you are diverse and you obviously can have difficult discussions. But now it's about pulling together.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Piñero, followed by Doug Portello. No? Okay. Okay. Doug Portello?
Good morning again.
Good morning.
I stand by every word I said. And obviously, my comment was, you know, I speak to you, Mayor, but it is about the ones that have served on council. And this is a broken local government. And it has been corrupt in many ways. And when I say corrupt, I don't mean sticking money in your pocket, because I don't have any evidence of that, and I wouldn't say it unless I did. But it is corrupt, because those meetings are not populated by the citizens. You go to those meetings, you see how many people actually show up. A handful. You know why? Because the trust of the public has been completely eroded, and you don't listen to us. I've made a lot of statements, and I've researched and done a lot of facts, and I've been right a lot of times, and I'm not listened to. I actually have a council person that blocked me when I was doing the fireworks task force. These committees, the mayor is a new mayor. We have new council members. We have a lot of excitement about the potential in that. We have a lot of more diverse backgrounds and, you know, what they bring to council. But the level of disrespect that was shown the mayor, and I believe, and I could be wrong, is my perception that maybe he was just being a little too friendly with Councilman Starr. And this is a very divided committee. It's basically a 6-to-1 council, and that's sad to see. It's very sad to me to see that. And the disrespect that was given our mayor, it's his choice. In the presentation that the city manager said, he said it was the city council. That's wrong. That's misinformation. It's the mayor who decides that, not the city council, as you put in your video, your biased, one-sided video, which was wrong. It's the mayor. And I just urge you, whatever way you go in terms of respecting the mayor's choice, that you do that. And you get behind your mayor and you support him, because it's the mayor's choice with the approval of the city council. That's right. That's the language. And that's how it's supposed to be done. And I hope and pray that all of you get behind our mayor, because he's the face of our city. You know, it's a ceremonial position to one extent, but it's one vote of 7. But the mayor pro tem is also the guy that is taking his place. So he made a recommendation. That wasn't respected. You guys have a right to vote. That wasn't, I hope in this case that when he makes recommendations for the committee, I know he's doing that for the betterment of Oxnard, putting the right people with the right skills in those, and respect his decision and follow your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Doug. I appreciate it.
Mayor, we're going to move on to our 2 virtual speakers. Caller ending in 7250, please press *6 to unmute, introduce yourself, and start now. Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Uh-oh, do we have 2 people on the line?
It sounds like it.
Yeah, I'll defer to you. Mr. Herrera, and then I'll go if there's no objection. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as he mentioned, this is Manuel Herrera. I just wanted to remind the mayor that it was Aaron Starr who wanted to eliminate the committee structure because he felt it was not serving the public well. Yet, while at the same time, he was fighting to get appointed to the committee of his choice. So which is it? If the committees aren't that important, then why is it important that he gets priority for his choice? It seems that he feels he doesn't have to wait his turn and earn the right to sit on the Finance and Governance Committee, and instead wants you, the mayor, to either boot out Turan, boot out Basua, or boot yourself out in order to put him in. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that as mayor, all eyes will be on you to make the wise and right decision of honoring the requests, not of Aaron Starr, but of that of Turan and Basua, which is to stay in this committee and to continue the tradition that the mayor sits on each committee. We will see if your decision will best benefit your current seasoned and well-deserving council members or Aaron Starr. They say that perception is everything. So what perception are you going to give to the voters of Oxnard with your decision? I trust that you'll make the right decision. And let me just end with this. You know why Aaron Starr gets away with everything he does? Because he can, because you guys allow it. You as a council cannot and should not enable this man. So please put a leash on this guy and quit letting him control these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. We'll go to the next virtual caller.
Caller
Good morning.
Please proceed.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Mayor Pro Tem Ron and council members. My name is Ronald Arwejo, and I recommend that you do indeed elect members for these committees for a variety of reasons that the city needs to get working, and these committees are the best way to do it to process these items for the deliberation needed and for the public input and to go on to city council. And I'd advise, as what several speakers have said, including what's in the report, that upon the proposal of the appointments to each of the city council committees, that the city council will then consider the approval, which also means that if the city council as a whole wishes to amend the mayor's proposal for the betterment of the city, that a majority of you should be able to do that. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the appointments and the final approval. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you for calling in this early in the morning. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, so
Yes, Councilmember Starr.
my understanding is that under the government code, you get to make the appointments subject to the vote of the city council.
That's correct.
So we have the ability to accept or reject it. We don't have the ability to modify it. When you do make your motion for populating the committees, at the same time, you should select the chair. And that can be one of two ways. Either you mention that person's name first, I would suggest it be you in each case, or you specifically outright say it as part of your motion. So that's my suggestion today.
Thank you. Any other comments? Open for discussion. Any other council members want to? Yes, Councilmember Perrello.
I'll just say that the two-year term, that was news to me. So I'm assuming there's been two different determinations of what the two-year term is. But I'm assuming when the mayor appoints the committee, you're starting the two-year clock.
That's
I'm
correct.
assuming. And I'm assuming that the previous mayor kept the committees going, so that must have been the thing. I don't know what was in his heart or his head. But it's your shot, it's your call, and you have to have the approval of 3 other members in the council.
Correct.
And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to move into discussing the appointments. Will you be going maybe a committee at a time? You know, let's start with Finance and Governance. I am going to be recommending we appoint Councilmember A, Councilmember B, Councilmember C with so-and-so as chair. And then are we going to vote on that and then move on to Committee 2 and then Committee 3? Is that, I'm just wondering how we plan to attack this one.
You know, and before we get to that too, and City Attorney, I'd like to see if you could provide some clarity. I wonder if I couldn't make a motion to move in conversations with staff, and also please, Councilmember Perrello or pursue some of the senior leadership here. I was told that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing Development Committee is the committee that is most often counseled. And what that causes is it causes staff as well as us to essentially wait until 8:30 to hear the Public Works and Transportation Committee that is, well, as we saw here today, Public Works is the one that has the most items and rarely ever does counsel. So it just makes logical sense to move the Public Works and Transportations Committee in sequence following the Finance and Governance Committee. So we'll have the Public Works and Transportation Committee second, and then the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing Development Committee third. If that seems to make logical sense, and if that's your experience, and I open up for comment here from some of the senior council members to see if that's been the experience.
I don't sit in that committee. I don't sit in that committee, so.
Yes, Councilman Perrello.
Your point is a good point, but I want to bring this up. The two-year thing, I want to put something to bed so we don't do it next time. We had a mayor pro tem, and we had typically 4 years, but then it was decided maybe 1 year. But it was never clear or clean how that's been approved. So I think, looking at how that was, I think the two-year term has got to be addressed. Is it 2 years period? Is it 2 years retroactive? Is it 2 years going forward? I think that's a fair thing. Shaking and jaking, how are you going to mix them up like deck of cards? A lot of it had to do with who could attend meetings because of work.
Correct.
And sometimes at 8:30, the meeting's starting late at night. You know, it's like Mayor, me, and Art. We live it. Nobody had a gun to our head to run for this job just like you.
Yeah.
And when you take the city's money for serving in this thing, whether we take it or not, there is an expectation that you're going to do the job. So we'll go wherever you serve, wherever you put. But I appreciate you even thinking about it.
Thank you. And that may just change maybe what some of us here want to participate in, depending if we. So is it appropriate, City Attorney, to make a motion to move the Public Works and Transportation Committee to second in sequence and move the one that is most often counseled to put that third?
So that's one of the issues that's out of sync with the current bylaws that are written for a 5-committee system. So until we fix the bylaws, I think you've got free rein to propose how you want to see it and see if your colleagues agree.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I can
Yes.
just provide a little background on the logic at the time. Also, I want to address this rhetoric about, in essence, we haven't had committees. Just again, go back in time, look at the timing. We started the committee process that had 5 committees. Then at around the same time, we had to implement Measure M. So we couldn't hold the committees during the day, so we had to go to a night, so we had to condense them. And there was a little inconvenience during that period called COVID. So we had a lot of other priorities and a lot of seriously more important things to deal with during that time. Not making excuses, I'm just giving an explanation. And no one in the council had any inclination to change committees. And with Measure M sort of making some of the ordinances and stuff irrelevant anyway, we didn't make it a priority to update the bylaws. Right? Not an excuse, just an explanation. Now, with regard to the timing, the original logic was because Public Works is, by the way, you're wanting to change Public Works will make them very happy, by the way. So no problem there. But the original logic was, because remember, we were just starting this process, which also, by the way, I know people don't like it when I say this once in a while, but we're not that special. There are lots of cities and local governments that utilize the committee system. So let's not forget that. But it was knowing that Public Works has usually the highest number of items and not knowing how long those meetings would run, we placed it last so that it wouldn't make any other committee, the 3rd committee, whatever it would be late. It's because we can start late, but we can't start early once we schedule these meetings. So that was the logic, but you're right. The middle committee is the one that is the most canceled. So I would say this is a good move, and we can always move it back if it turns out to have more meetings not canceled, and that it gets displaced frequently. So we'll figure that out.
Okay.
So I actually think it's a good roll of the dice to shift the 2.
I appreciate that. So I'll make the motion to shift the 2.
Just so I'm clear, what will the order be of the 3 committees? Which order? Which one comes first, second, and then third? I just want to be sure that I understand the motion.
I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure I understand the motion. What will be the particular order of the committees?
Oh, got it. Thank you. I'll clarify. So the sequence would be, the motion would be having the Finance and Governance Committee first at 5 o'clock to 6:30 p.m. And then following that would be the Public Works and Transportation Committee, starting at 6:45 to 8:15. And then at 8:30 would be the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee,
Okay.
3rd. That is my motion.
Okay.
To put it in that order.
Second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Perrell, appreciate it. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can we get a vote?
Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem Teran?
Yes, and thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Basua?
Aye.
Mayor MacArthur?
Yes.
Councilmember Perallo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bettis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilman Starr?
Yes.
The motion carries 7-0.
Wonderful. Now we can go down to, we'll continue on this agenda item. It is the, one of the things I do want to consider is I as I've expressed here, my interpretation of the rules we have in place is a 2-year term. And I think, given that, it's not that we're going to start fresh here, but it's, if we're going to adhere to and be completely transparent to what is in place, is those that have served a 2-year term should look to go to another committee away from the one they currently have served in, because I think our senior leadership here has served beyond 2 years on any one of these committees. But I will consider any request from any council member to serve on a particular committee other than the one that they have currently served on beyond the 2 years to adhere to our standing rules. Is there a council member at all that has a particular interest in any one of those committees? I know there's, well, 4 of us are new here, but going by seniority, Councilmember Perello.
Any committee other than the one that I serve. Any committee other than the one I serve, that's the question.
That's correct.
I'll serve wherever you want me to go.
I appreciate that,
I
Councilmember
like
Perello.
Public Works a lot, but I'll go, and I appreciate you standing up and making that decision.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Basua.
So if I'm moving out of, for the 2-year term, because I mean, I obviously have sat there for more than 2 years, I guess Public Works. I could go to Housing and the other one, but then I wouldn't be able to participate much in that one.
Because of the conflict?
That's a point that I think you need to ask her, she needs to share, because it's a very important fact.
Yeah,
And so she has a tremendous amount of wealth of information.
Absolutely, she does.
But she's in between a rock and a hard place.
So, I mean, but if somebody else wants Public Works, I mean, as they say, it gets canceled a lot, so.
No, that's the one that's not canceled. The one that is
No,
always.
no, yeah, always, see, so, I mean.
But that's going to go second. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the question. I understand the logic behind it. If the question is, which committee would I be interested in aside from the one I'm currently in, I'm at odds with answering the question because I'm particularly interested in continuing to serve on finance and governance. So I can't thoroughly answer your question, so that's my response.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman Gabriela Perez.
Rodriguez.
Gosh.
Thank you very much. I am at the pleasure of the mayor, and I don't mind serving in the one that meets latest in the evening.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Perez.
I am the same as Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you. Serving on the one that meets later or any?
Correct, any would be perfect for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Starr.
My whole background as a CPA is finance, so it just seems like the one that I could contribute the most to. So that's where I'm coming. I'm not an engineer that knows about all the public works stuff, and I don't know housing the way that other people do here, or public safety, but I think I'm pretty good with finance.
Thank you.
Or at least they think that way at work.
Thank you. Look, I sincerely appreciate, yes, Councilmember Perrello, yes.
Good question. Just in fairness with the rest of the council, I appreciate your finance thing, but the majority here have all said that they serve wherever the mayor would serve. Would you serve wherever the mayor would put you?
I'm a real big believer in this mayor, and if the mayor wants to put me into a position that I'm not really all in that favor of, I mean, I'm going to honor his decision. I think that, you know, I know what my preference is. I know where I can contribute the most, but I do want to support my mayor, and you know, what he decides, I'll go along with. But I'll tell you right now, finance is really where that's my wheelhouse.
I just didn't want you to be put in a spot where you were totally different than the rest of the council. Everyone willing to do the best.
No,
for the city, giving you the opportunity to share that.
I get
Thank
it.
you.
And I sincerely appreciate all of you and willing to work with me and actually all of us working together. That is, I think, Runyon emphasized that enough calling in here. Doug did as well, that we need to be an effective council and be supportive of one another. So from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate all of you willing to work with me. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
When you're done.
Okay. So I'll take into consideration your desires and just go right down the list. The finance and governance, my opinion, and I think this is the folks that can better serve our city and our council. I will chair it, followed by Gabriela Rodriguez for the finance and governance, and Councilmember Aaron Starr. Going in sequence to the Public Works, honoring what Councilwoman Basua mentioned. And I appreciate that. And to avoid a conflict, to the Public Works and Transportation Committee, as well as Mayor Pro Tem Gabe Turan, and I will chair that committee. And then on the Community Services, Public Safety, and Housing Development, I think Councilmember Perez will stand to gain a lot from our senior leadership here with Councilmember Perello on the Community Services, Public Safety, and Housing Development, and I will chair that committee. And that is my recommendation for that, and also adhering to the two-year term so that we can follow our own guidelines moving forward. Yes, Councilmember.
And if I can make a suggestion, if you just look at the past, the mayor shared for, maybe there was a rationale for his thought or something else, but the mayor doesn't chair every meeting, every board. It gives an opportunity for other people to get a little bit of more saddle time chairing an organization. So just something to think about.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Councilmember Perello. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor, for putting the thought and consideration in this and giving everyone an opportunity to share. And I appreciate you respectfully accepting, my non-response to your question there. One thing that I do want to point out, and everybody just, well, I shouldn't say everybody, 4 of us just came off election, and a lot of really good discussion and discourse happened in the course of that for the 4 of you to land the spots that the voters have entrusted you with. And I certainly followed that process. And some of the big items that were spoken about there were around public safety, addressing the housing crisis and homelessness. And, for Councilmember Starr, his top 3 priorities stated in items that were written and went home in the mail in the candidates forums at each of the forums that I viewed, and then on his website, are reducing homelessness, supporting safer neighborhoods, and making housing more affordable. Those 3 items lend themselves to the Community Services, Public Safety, and Housing Development Committee. And those were the items that he, as an example, sold to the voters. I shouldn't say sold, promised to the voters that were top priority and helped them see what he was going to do when he came into this seat on this council. And so I appreciate his finance background. It's certainly, he has a wealth of knowledge in that, but he didn't tell the voters, when I get there, I'm going to do finance and be on the governance committee, and I'm going to tighten up our finances. I'm going to ask questions to make sure it's out there. He said, I'm going to address reducing homelessness, supporting safer neighborhoods through public safety is my interpretation of that, and making housing more affordable. Those 3 things are the very name, the title of that committee. And I only bring that up because the 4 of you, and you'd be in all the committees, Mayor, so, more power to you on that. Long evenings, but those are considerations too as far as your priorities and what was stated. I heard very diverse answers from all of you in the course of the election. So I think you're going to land in places that are going to serve well what you had stated. But I just felt that was worth bringing up as what was stated to the voters to put you all here as we look at what we're going to do and focus on in these committees. So just wanted to make that point.
And I appreciate that. And, adhering to our 2-year term, we're going to be back here in 2 years So I think, much so like the voters have put us here, looking for a fresh new perspective and looking for like just even to enhance our own capabilities to be able to then, much like yourself, Mayor Pro Tem, you served on Finance and Governance Committee, and so did Councilwoman Basua. And from what I can tell from the feedback, did a fantastic job. And so now we're giving an opportunity to somebody else. And eventually, after 2 years, we'll come right back here and moving then Councilwoman Rodriguez and Councilmember Starr, moving them over to one of the other committees to gain more experience in one of those committees, and then also providing an opportunity then for Councilman Perez or somebody else to go into one of these other committees that they're interested in. So it works out well for a 4-year term that we have here to serve 2 years and another 2 years, the latter part of our term here that we've been elected to do this job. So I'm going to make a motion to for the recommendations that I made, and hoping to get a second on that.
Can you rename the recommendation?
Yes, sir. The recommendation is for the Finance and Governance Committee, myself, Councilwoman Rodriguez, Councilmember Starr. For the Public Works and Transportation Committee, myself, Mayor Pro Tem Teran, Councilwoman Basua. The Community Services, Public Safety, and Housing and Development Committee, myself, Councilmember Perello, and Councilwoman Perez.
With you as chair on each of the committees.
Yes.
Okay.
Going to be chair.
Yes. Would you like, I will open it up.
I think you make a mistake when you do
Okay.
that, and you do yourself a disservice by not allowing somebody else.
Okay, I will take that into
It's
consideration.
sad to people it right.
So-
Think you understood.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will, well, we can always come back and circle back as city attorney, is that correct? And take myself out of the chair and have someone else who's interested in being a chair assume that role? Or does that have to happen here?
You can bring the item back, but, it may be another night full of discussion.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you can always bring something back to change it.
I appreciate Councilmember Perello's insight and his seniority here, so I will, Councilmember, would you like to chair the,
That's good. I'm not that I need to share, just sharing something being a benefit.
okay.
So, Perez.
Yeah, Councilmember Perez, would you like to chair the Community Services, Public Safety, and Housing Development meeting?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody else interested in chairing any of the other committees?
Okay, I need to ask a question. This, I'm no longer on the Fox Canyon stuff, because I'm not in Public Works anymore, so I'm off that now.
I think that'll be the next discussion.
They have a meeting Thursday, and they need to have somebody, so it's not going to be me anymore.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Can we get, oh, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just to confirm, Councilmember Perello, maybe I'm unclear on it, but the membership of the Fox Canyon, is that conditional of being on the Public Works Committee? Or is this a separate moving away from that committee?
My gut would be that a lot of the activities that go with Fox Canyon are addressed in the Public Works. I have no doubt that any one of the 3 people here could serve on the Fox Canyon. The only question would be their work time, because these guys meet at 1 o'clock.
Thank you. The Fox Canyon board members, which you're an alternate of, that's determined by the Council of Mayors for the city representative seat. So it's not dependent on your PWTC appointment.
But I would not be involved with Public Works anymore.
That's okay.
Let's talk into your mic. So I just want to add, while everyone's correct about the technical requirements, it was an alignment here for the city that made sense to have the chair of the Public Works Committee serve on that committee. It just made sense. It's just alignment. And you'll see that when you get to the next item, certain things align.
Thank you. I just wanted to ensure that there was no conditional membership on that, because now if the Public Works Committee is populated by Councilwoman Basua, myself, and the mayor, as was brought up by Councilmember Perrello, that's a ripple effect we'd have to look at on availability of any of the three of us to serve on that committee. But if it's non-conditional, we'll revisit it at the next agenda item, I suppose. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote?
There was, Mayor, there was a motion by you, and then I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, Councilwoman Basua?
Yes.
Mayor MacArthur?
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello?
Yes.
Councilwoman Perez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilman Starr?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Teran?
Yes.
And the motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're almost there. Last item on the agenda is item J5, is from the city clerk. The subject appointment of council members to serve on various boards, commissions, and committees. The recommendation that the mayor, with the approval of the city council, appoint members and alternates from city. And there's various ones in here. I think the best way to navigate that is certainly, out of respect to our senior leadership here, is looking at the boards that you're on, is to see if you want to stay on those boards, and if there's others that you want to take on, and we can just, as it comes up, we can just go right down the line. And yes,
I really just want to ask a question, and I kind of brought this up to the city manager during our onboarding meeting, and I think he said, well, you kind of want to have a seat at the table if they're offering you a seat there. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is, can somebody enumerate for me the tangible benefits the city has realized by having council members serve on these various boards, commissions, and committees? I mean, what was...
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so can you enumerate for me the tangible benefits the city has realized by having council members serve on these various boards, commissions, and committees?
I can give one, Mayor.
Thank you.
yes, Councilmember.
The city of Oxnard went out for a trash. City attorney, please listen to me. The city of Oxnard went out for a trash contract. We saved $800,000 a year in a 5-year, $4 million bucks. There was an opportunity for somebody to come and do it to the city by getting us to change. And I raised holy hell. There was a benefit to the city of Oxnard.
Which committee?
And our past mayor also wanted to kind of go along with the flow. And I had to explain to him that, Aaron, if I had a $4 hamburger and I gave it to you, you'd know I gave it to you. You'd probably disclose it on a 700 form. But if I had one and I didn't give it to you and you found out about it, you'd never forget about it. So when I explained to the mayor, we got 200,000 people here, and we're going to save $4 a piece. Does it make a difference? It made a difference to me. Convinced him. I believe that I brought tremendous assets to that board.
Which organization was
Ventura
that?
Regional Sanitation District.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I haven't served in these committees, but I do think that just the communication, the information, the relationships, and, partnerships with the different entities and the players on the table with other city representatives as well is very important, but my opinion.
Can I get clarification, City Attorney? Do these have term limits? If not, could we follow to be consistent even with the committees? Can I propose a 2-year term limit on these?
So my understanding is that each perhaps has its own set of rules that apply. So it's a complicated question. So for example, the VRSD, Ventura Regional Sanitation District, I believe that one, well, I don't know for certain, but I think that one has a statutory basis that requires representation from all of the cities, and Councilmember Perrello can speak more, but there's also another member to that as well.
It requires a city council representative appointed by the council from Oxnard, Port Hueneme, Fillmore, Santa Paula, Ventura. Wait, there's one more. Oxnard, Port Hueneme, I'm missing one. And a special district. There's 21 special districts, and they vote among themselves too for one of them. So I'm gonna get it again. Thousand Oaks. I'm sorry, not Thousand, Ojai. Ojai, Santa Paula, Fillmore, Port Hueneme, Ventura, and Oxnard, and the special districts. That's who's on it.
But I'm just asking, is it a possibility?
And I beg your pardon.
Sure.
And the special districts, they change that person every year. Other guys have been on this thing for quite some time.
I was
And
just
I'm not
asking.
saying I'm the best thing since sliced bread, but I'm telling you need somebody on the board. Put somebody else beside me if you want, but you put somebody else on the board to watch out for City of Oxnard's interest. The most recent thing, and another one to answer Mr. Starr, the VRSD tried to make Oxnard have a problem with our dump. They were wrong. And raising hell, that's the exact word. Got something changed, and our Public Works Department exposed what was not correct. You need to watch them like a hawk.
And I was just, because there's currently no term limits here. We could, if that was an option, we could start fresh from here moving forward.
Yeah, so if I may give some input, both on the substance of these boards and whatever they're called, boards, agencies, commissions, as well as the term limits, would not recommend a 2-year term limit for service here because it's gonna take anybody a year to figure out what the hell they're doing.
Okay.
And that's not uncommon, by the way. So the substance, though, does matter in my mind, on many of these organizations. I think I would comfortably say they're not all equally important. But when you just go down the list, so water, there's really nothing that's going to trump that in our future here. If we're not represented, then we can't advocate for our community. We can't defend our community, and in some of these, not being at the table could mean regional decisions are made for regional pots of money. We will be diverted to the places of those who are present. So the Clean Power Alliance Board, that's the organization that offers electricity to our residents who've chosen to go that way. So if we're not there, then we're not in the discussions about the next round of rates or the next round of investments. The Gold Coast Transit, to me, is highly important. If we're not at that table, no one from Oxnard is advocating for improving bus routes for our community. Now, I'm not assuming that they don't have that interest either, but if we have a seat there, I think it's important that we're there. Airport authority is very important because even though it's not our airport, it's in the middle of our city. And there's a lot of changes coming in the future in terms of technology and what's going to be happening at small airports. So I think we really need to be there. Convention and Visitors Bureau, that's actually an organization that we contribute to, so I think it's important to have a seat at that table. Regional Defense Partnership, that's with regard to the Navy base, and I think it's very important that we start advocating now that they've pretty much comfortably cleared the hurdle of not having the base on the federal closure list, that it's important to realign that base, the potential civilian jobs, in addition to the military jobs, all the potential civilian jobs there, to realign it so that the training programs can happen at Oxnard College so that our residents actually have a shot at the good jobs there, which right now it's not happening. So I think it's important to be there to push and to advocate for that organization to focus on Oxnard. Again, all of this in the context of we're 1/4 of the county's population.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the Ventura Council of Governments. That's actually, to Councilwoman Rodriguez's comment, that's a good one where you really have a monthly meeting with your counterparts throughout the county and just get a sense of what else is happening. Air pollution control district, that's pretty important. So again, I think we should have a voice and a seat there. Everybody loves animals, so I'm just gonna say, okay, I'm not a pet person, so. And then the Energy Alliance. So these organizations exist. Other jurisdictions have certain seats on them. If what's the classic line, Councilmember Perrello? If you're not on
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yeah,
If
okay.
you're not a seat at the table, you're on the menu.
There you go. So, there's a few more. You're right, the sanitation district, and of course, the Transportation Commission. That is so important to us because they collect statewide tax dollars, and they have to make decisions about how to invest it across the county. And they've been discussing for many years now, going back and trying to get a county-wide transportation tax, whether you want to agree with that or not. If it happens, my concern is the formula for that spending will not be proportional for the city of Oxnard. So I think it's very important to have a very active member on that commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, and thank you, City Manager, for going down the list there. To Councilmember Starr's question about the tangible benefits, similar to the example that Councilmember Perrello gave, I serve on the Airport Authority, and early on in my after my appointment to City Council, prior to being appointed to the Airport Authority, I was asked by then Mayor Zaragoza to attend as a council member because of the proximity of my district and where I live to the airport, these public meetings for the airport master plan that the county, under a different administrator back then for the airports, was putting on. And they were held virtually, and there was a meeting in the morning for elected officials, and then a meeting in the afternoon for the public. And the elected officials one, the consultants were asking questions and doing polls and things around the airport master plan and use of the airports in Camarillo and Oxnard. I will say, Mayor, that out of all the officials who were on that call, myself and a council member from the city of Camarillo were the only two asking questions about, well, wait a minute, what about this? What about this? And those questions, I feel comfortable saying, were sandbagged, weighted questions in favor of use of the airports that are in the city of Oxnard and the city of Camarillo in a way that was just telling us what they were going to do versus asking, hey, what use would you like to see here? And that's not to speak poorly of any other electeds who were on that, but there were only two who were vocally asking questions. And I felt that in that process that had I not been there, had we not had representation for Oxnard there, that those questions in looking at Oxnard's interests wouldn't have been asked. And I know Councilman Perrello served on the Airport Authority for a number of years and represents us well there. But that led into me later replacing then Councilwoman Lopez, now Supervisor Lopez, when she left. And it was a bit of a learning curve, but I learned quite a bit, and it helped that I lived near the airport almost my entire life and just needed the kind of background and technicals on it. So as a tangible benefit to that, having advocacy on behalf of Oxnard residents to a county entity and a county operation that's happening within the boundaries of Oxnard, we are able to not only gather information of what's happening, but also relay that to the public, but also advocate for Oxnard's interests. And the saying was already stated by our two council members on here, if you don't have a seat at the table. The last thing I'll say regarding the appointments for this, the city manager touched on it. Some of these have a very steep learning curve. And I certainly tip my hat to anyone who tries to step into some of these committees that former Mayor Pro Tem McDonald sat on, because he sat on a number of them for a number of years. But when we look at water, just water rights and water within the region, that is an incredibly steep learning curve. And I can't imagine somebody just jumping in and replacing Councilmember Perello, who's incredibly versed on it because of his years of service on those committees and commissions. And so that being said, just speaking for myself, I know you'd asked about where we would see ourselves. I would certainly be willing to continue serving on the committees I currently am on, Beacon and the Airport Authority, which I know is a separate item on here. But I'd also be willing, just looking at my own workload for my full-time day job, I could take on the Oxnard Convention and Visitors Bureau if need be as well. And last thing I'll say is for Beacon, which is a JPA, not just within Ventura County, but Santa Barbara County as well. We're looking at beach erosion, sea level rise, climate change, things that are currently affecting and will continue to affect the city of Oxnard as time goes on here, and we need to have representation on there. And then for Airport Authority, I feel that my time there and serving alongside Councilmember Perello has really given us the ability, because of our proximity to the airport and our districts that we serve, had a good voice on there. And the last thing I'll say is if any council members would like to serve as an alternate, just because their primary is going doesn't mean they can't attend and view the meeting and get themselves up to speed. So that way, if they are asked to step in, they can, or after a year or 2 years, maybe they become the primary for that particular meeting. So those are my thoughts, Mayor.
Wonderful. Well, what do we do is, I think, for efficiency, and I think we should collectively honor those members that are already sitting in those boards. They have certainly the opportunity to stay on there if they want to. Should we just go down the list? The Association of Water Agencies for Ventura County, there's 2 vacancies on there. Is there?
I would actually love to sit on that because, as I think I mentioned at our first council meeting, that I attended the annual event of the Association of Water Agencies. And I actually have a history with it because a former council member in Simi Valley, where I helped get elected years and years ago, was basically one of the people that pretty much started this association at the time. And I've worked with her over the years, and I definitely have an affinity for Lynn Mulhart, who serves with that, and I think he's, by the way, very, very bright. And I'm definitely concerned about water in the future and the supply of it. And I know he is, and we're talking about how do we refill the aquifers and that sort of thing. So,
is there another?
I would like to address that. And Mr. Starr, I would not challenge you for being on the water, but I want you to be very, very careful. You represent the city of Oxnard. The city of Oxnard. 4 individuals ran for United Water Conservation District to represent Oxnard. The vast amounts of money that came in against those 4 individuals from outside of the area, from corporations, Mr. Mulhart, one of them, and took out an individual that would have been good on that board. Chumming up with United Water Board is detrimental to the city of Oxnard. When you get a little more feet on the ground here, you'll find out how many lawsuits United Water has put against the city of Oxnard.
I would definitely.
So that's the only reason.
That's fine. I definitely want to have a conversation with you later because I want more details about that.
Okay.
This is news to me.
I just want to put it on the public record. So
that's fine. No, this is stuff that I don't know about. I'm not aware of the controversy there.
Is there an alternate member? Anyone at all interested in serving in that?
I wanted to actually be the. I actually wanted that. That's the only committee I wanted, and I told Star that.
It was funny because earlier we were asking, so what do you want? And I said, I was the first one to answer, says, well, the one I'm really just interested in is the water.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
then-
she's like, that's the one I want
Well,
too.
Councilwoman Basu, we'll put you there, and then Mr. Starr is an alternate, but much like Mayor Pro Tem was saying,
Okay.
you both can attend, right, and gain
Okay.
from it. Is that okay?
I don't have a problem being an alternate. I'm going to learn hopefully just as much doing that as the members.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So, Councilwoman Basua, and as the alternate, Councilmember Starr. And then the beach erosion, we have Mayor Pro Tem Turan. Would you like to stay on that? I'm sorry. Yes, Councilwoman Torres.
Yeah, I would just say that I'd love to serve as the alternate for Beacon.
Wonderful. Is that okay?
Yes,
All right, so
thank
we
you.
have Mayor Pro Tem Turan as a member and the alternate Councilwoman Perez. The Big Independent Cities Excess Pool Joint Powers Authority, Councilmember Perrello.
If someone wants to serve there, I'm comfortable with someone else serving there. Basically what it is, the city of Oxnard has an insurance policy with other cities because the agreements are expiring. Because the agreements are expiring, any lawsuits coming against the city of Oxnard, and I'm not talking about you, Mr. Starr, coming against the city of Oxnard.
Thank you.
They defend in the 5 or 6 cities that are involved, pool their funds. So you get to hear what's going on, and you also, bluntly, to all 7 council members, you get to hear how fantastic our public safety department is because these other cities have so many officer-involved shootings that lead to serious litigation. You may know about that.
I certainly do. Thank you, Councilmember Perrello. Is there any interest? If not, Councilmember Perrello.
But if somebody wants to serve, it's a learning experience. You work with city attorney and Mr. Mike Moore from the insurance. If no one else wants it, I'll serve.
Thank you, Councilmember Perrello. Sounds like there is none. So we're going to stay on there. We'll leave you on there. Moving on to Clean Power Lines Board of Directors. Councilmember Perrello will
And
defer to
again,
you.
this is another one, if someone wants to serve. Now, Mr. Starr, this is one of the cases where serving on a thing, there are grants and there are funds put out that our city can become involved in, but you're at a seat, and I forget how, it's almost 100 cities. So if you don't speak up, whoever's on it doesn't speak up, they don't get a seat at the table. Fortunately, there's a lady, Miss Kathleen Mallory. She's there sometimes, and she's the, in all fairness, Ashley Golden was the one that carried the ball to make sure that we get in line for any grants that we could possibly get. So that is one where there's a definite benefit to the city.
Wonderful. Is there any, Mayor Pro Tem Turan, I defer to you. You're on there. Do you want to stay on there?
I'm happy to continue as an alternate, and as long as and I know we have Ms. Mallory who's able to participate as an alternate as well. Because I have standing meetings first Thursdays, but in the morning, this schedule still works for me. But if there ever is a time that Councilor Perrello thinks he cannot go, or Ms. Mallory can't go, or whatever the case is, just let me know ahead of time so I can make sure that my work schedule allows.
And it's definitely important. If you can't make the meeting, you let your alternate know, because the day that you don't make the meeting, that's when you find out from the minutes the next time, hey, wait a minute, what the hell happened?
That's when you're on the menu.
And seriously, if someone wants to serve in that position for me, I'm cool with it.
Appreciate that, Councilmember Perrello. The Economic Development Collaborative of Ventura County that's currently vacant, is there any interest at all for that? For that organization? No? Okay, we'll pass that, maybe revisit that. The Gold Coast Transit District, currently 2 vacancies there. Is there an interest?
I'm interested in Gold Coast.
Okay. Councilwoman Rodriguez, is there an interest for an alternate? Okay, we'll revisit that. Las Cortes Housing Development Corporation, currently Councilwoman Basua. Would you like to stay on that, Councilwoman Basua?
I can come off of it.
Okay.
It was Mayor Pro Tem Donald. I never went to any of the meetings.
Okay.
He sat on a lot of stuff. He was really good.
Okay. Is there any interest on sitting on that organization? Okay, we'll come back to that. The Oxnard Airport Authority, I know Mayor Pro Tem, you mentioned an interest on that, and then Councilmember
If
Perrello.
someone wants my seat, they're welcome to it.
Okay, well, there's a place for an alternate as well.
I can be an alternate, but
For the airport?
I see other vacancies, so I highlighted 2 other committees that are coming up
Okay,
that don't have somebody.
okay, so we'll put you down as the alternate
And
for
Mayor,
the Oxnard Airport
if I
Authority.
may.
Yes.
I appreciate that, Councilwoman, because geographically, the airport does border districts 1, 2, and 4. And I think as an alternate, that would be a great fit. And I'm glad Councilmember Perrello, he's gracious enough to offer it to anyone who wants it. But I think he's done a great job on there thus far. But also just geographically, we have constituents who will reach out to us directly when it comes to airport items. So I think it's a good lineup there.
Sharing the information with the council. Some individuals in the neighborhoods of District 1, Seaview, Via Marina, Oxnard Shores, Cabrillo, they want to shut down the airport. So just heads up.
Okay. And the next one is Oxnard Convention and Visitors Bureau. I mean, that's the one I was interested in, but after following a conversation with Mayor Pro Tem Teran, he's highly interested in that, so I certainly will yield for you to be there. I can fill in as an alternate if you need me to, Councilmember Perrello. If not, that's okay too.
Fine, perfect. It's perfect.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's the only one I was interested in, but I know you mentioned you were highly motivated, so that's okay too. This just goes along with my really motivated to make the city of Oxnard a cultural destination, so I think that would be very appropriate. The Regional Defense Partnership, Councilmember Pasua, would you like to remain on that?
I will come off of that. That's very informative committee. They are very active.
Okay.
So they meet on the first Thursdays of every month, and there's a DC trip that happens in the spring.
Is there an interest?
I was interested in being an alternate,
Okay.
but I'd really like to support. I'm not trying to, so I'd like to be an alternate.
Yeah, but you want to stay on or?
That's fine. You can stay on.
Okay.
Because I think there's a quarterly meeting that has 2 vacancies
Okay.
with the animal regulation.
Well, right now, the Mayor Pro Tem Teran is gone. We should just fill him in on all the vacancies. No, I'm just kidding. Ventura Council of Governments, Councilmember Perrello, is that something you want to stay on?
Not really.
I am interested in that one.
I'll be honest, it is something, and you get to hear a lot of, you got to understand, you're the biggest city in the county.
Oh.
And you get treated like the dummy in the box. That's how they treat Oxnard. And it's not cool. But there are opportunities, and right now there's a big thing with broadband and all this other stuff. And if you're not, hey, I want some too, you're entitled to some. And in the past, there has been an issue where the city of Oxnard was not given credit for having, and Mayor Pro Tem, please help me out. Disadvantaged population is what it's called.
Disadvantaged communities.
Disadvantaged communities. So other people got it. And Oxnard doesn't count for disadvantaged community. And you're like, what the hell? That's, be aware of that. But that's not really my bag.
Okay. Is there, Councilmember Starr, were you indicating you're interested in that? Or-
Not after Perrello's description.
Well,
Well, you might find some, I'll tell you what, Aaron, I think you might find some kindred spirits there.
Are you saying I'm out of step?
No, it's a diverse group.
I'll be an alternate. How's that?
Okay.
If you'll continue to serve as the member also.
I might be calling in sick in the future. You got it, okay. All right, all right, okay.
The Ventura County Air Pollution Control District, is that,
Interested?
you interested?
Yes.
Wonderful, okay. Councilwoman Perez. The Ventura County Animal Regulation Commission, currently 2 vacancies.
I am interested. I'm happy to be an alternate member as well, so I don't know if anybody else was.
Councilwoman Rodriguez as an alternate, is there anyone interested at all in being the primary on that? No?
And I'll do it as primary.
It's primary, okay.
Yeah.
There you go, wonderful, okay. And the Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, currently is Councilwoman Basua and Councilmember Perello.
I think Councilmember Peralta has maybe gone once for me, maybe. They don't, it says quarterly, but we only met one time last year. So, I mean,
It comes as a surprise when there's a meeting.
yeah, there's not much.
There's not much.
So, I mean, do you need me to stay on it? Somebody else wants it? It's all yours.
They can have my alternate, I mean, it's,
Yeah, me too. Like,
No changes at all, I get, no?
would somebody else like the alternate?
primary?
Doesn't seem like it.
I feel like Councilmember Perillo has stepped up a lot. I'm happy to be your alternate.
Okay. We'll have Councilwoman Rodriguez as the alternate. Apologize. The Ventura Regional Sanitation District, Councilmember Perello, and there's an alternate that's currently vacant. Councilmember Perello, I know you've taken on quite a bit.
You know, if somebody else is really hot to be on it, okay, but just realize, you need to pay it.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
He was waiting for that one, yeah.
There is the issue about.
If you
Steve,
stay on it, Peralta,
city-
I'd like to be the alternate.
City attorney, correct me if I'm wrong. I
If
can
he
talk
stays
about-
on it.
Okay.
I can talk about not litigation stuff. We are a member of this organization. There are several issues with different things, tremendous liability for the members. The management and the attorney over there says no, but it doesn't seem that way. And when some of the operations and the methods of them operating have taken place, I look at it again, Oxnard, the biggest city, they put their neck on the line for a lot of other cities. My opinion.
Councilwoman Basu says she'll step up as the alternate, Councilwoman Peralta, if you stay on there.
Okay.
Wonderful. And then last, we have the Ventura County Transportation Commission plus committees, or subcommittees, and that's currently vacant. If no one's interested, I can take that. And I also will offer that, so I'm certainly appreciative of everyone stepping up, but I will always offer to fill in for any one of you on any one of these committees that you can't attend or the alternate can't attend. I will offer to just, to fill in as necessary. Yeah, don't start, don't give them ideas. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
One quick thing, just regarding that note. On the rare occasion that the South Bank Neighborhood Council holds a meeting, they typically will have have in the past had their neighborhood council meetings on the same night as the airport authority. And Councilmember Perello and I share that neighborhood. That's the one neighborhood that's split among districts. And there have been occasions where they have a very important meeting, and I've made it clear to the county that the neighborhoods and the districts and the city that I serve will take precedent over county items unless there's major things going on. But there have been a few instances where Councilmember Perello and I did need to be at the South Bank meeting, and the Mayor Zaragoza did fill in as the alternate. So I'm just letting Councilwoman Rodriguez know that, that it should be few and far between, but those stars have aligned in the past. So just as a heads up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I go over all the appointments, and then we still have some vacancies. For the Association of Water Agencies for Ventura County, I have Councilwoman Basua as a member. The alternate is Councilmember Starr. For Beacon or Beach Erosion, I have Mayor Pro Tem Teran, with the alternate being Councilwoman Bettis. For BICEP, Councilmember Peralta will remain. For Clean Powers, Councilmember Peralta will be the member. The alternates will be Mayor Pro Tem and Kathleen Mallory. For Economic Development Collaborative Ventura County, that one, we still need somebody to represent the city of Oxnard.
Is that the Economic Development Collaborative? Is that the- Okay. Yeah, I can't do it on that date. Is there any interest at all, any other council member for that one?
Can we ask if staff has any perspective on that particular collaborative?
So I think, is that one of the ones that we contribute to a little bit? Yeah, so we do contribute. I don't know the history of it. They provide, there's a description here. So they provide training, they provide consultancy. They also landed a pretty significant, pretty significant state legislature, a $5 million grant a couple years ago to do some upskilling training. So it's a very, from my understanding, is a very well-run organization, and they do good projects. What I don't know off the top of my head is how much of that is here in Oxnard. I just don't know.
Well, I will take that on, and if I need help, then I'll reach out to fill that void.
Okay, thank you.
I know you're not asking for an alternate. Is it possible for me to be his backup?
This outside board just only has a member. They don't have a vacancy. I mean, they don't have an alternate, I'm sorry.
So if I'm not available, I couldn't call upon someone else?
No.
No? Okay.
So are you available?
Yeah, I will make myself available. If not, then I'll relinquish it and talk to them, see if we couldn't.
Mayor, may I ask a question of the city attorney? Mr. Fisher, if we don't have an alternate listed, we can't create an alternate for the spot? There's no guarantee that none of us can buy a truck. I mean, is there a possibility for this particular one, as Councilmember Rodriguez said, volunteer, but it's called.
Well, apparently that organization will not allow an alternate as a voting member.
Okay.
So somebody could always attend, but they probably couldn't participate as a voting member.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So moving on Gold Coast Transit, we have the member, Councilwoman Rodriguez, and we need a alternate member to represent the city in Gold Coast.
I could be the alternate for that.
Thank you, Mayor. Las Cortes Housing Development Corporation, we have 2 vacancies.
Two vacancies for Las Cortes. Okay, I don't know that much about housing, but I know, having gone around with Emilio a few times, and I know the work that Brian McDonald and Oscar Madrigal and before them, Carmen Ramirez put in, and I know the fiasco that it's become with what's happened there. I'll volunteer to serve on that as the alternate or the main.
We can come back to that one, so we'll need one more.
If Councilmember Peralta wants to be first, I can sit second. Just don't miss any meetings.
You know, I think I'm listed as alternate for 2 other committees, so I can be the first if you want for housing, Las Cortes. Yeah.
Wonderful.
If that's okay.
Sounds like it's just 2 members, it's not an alternate.
Oh, it was just listed.
Correct.
Yes, 2 members.
It's 2 members, you both
Oh,
have
okay,
the
so it's
same.
not alternate.
No, it's 2 members. So I'm sorry, so for just for clarification, Las Cortes Housing Development Corporation, who will be the members?
Okay, then you. Basua?
No, I thought I could be an alternate.
Okay. So we'll do it. if that's
Okay, so it'll be Councilmember Perallo and Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Thank you. The Oxnard Airport Authority will Mayor Pro Tem Teran, Councilmember Perallo, and then the alternate will be Councilwoman Rodriguez. The Oxnard Convention and Visitors Bureau, the member will be Mayor Pro Tem Teran and Mayor MacArthur as the alternate. For the Regional Defense Partnership, the member will continue to be Councilwoman Basua, and the alternate member will be Councilwoman Rodriguez. Ventura Council of Governments will have, the member will be Councilmember Perallo, and the alternate will be Councilman Starr. The Ventura County Air Pollution Control District will be Councilwoman Perez. The Ventura County Animal Regulation Commission, the member will be Councilwoman Rodriguez, and we need an alternate.
I can serve as the alternate.
Thank you. So the alternate will be Councilwoman Perez. Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, we have member Councilwoman Basua, and the alternate member will be Councilwoman Rodriguez. The Ventura Regional Sanitation District, the member will be Councilmember Perallo, and the alternate member will be Councilwoman Basua. The Ventura County Transportation Commission will be Mayor MacArthur. And if everybody's in agreement, we will need two motions, one for the Association of Water Agencies, Beacon, Clean Powers, Economic Development, Gold Coast, Las Cortes, Oxnard Convention and Visitors Bureau, Regional Defense Partnership, Ventura Council of Governments, Ventura County Animal Regulation, Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, Ventura County Transportation Commission, and the Ventura Regional Sanitation District, the members that I just listed. If I can have a motion and a second.
I will move the recommended action.
I'll second.
Thank you. Councilman Starr?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Teran?
Yes.
Councilwoman Basua?
Aye.
Mayor MacArthur?
Yes.
Councilmember Perallo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Perez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0. Now, if I may have a motion for, this would be that the city council as a whole appoint 2 council members to the Oxnard Airport Authority and 1 council member as the alternate. So, for the Oxnard Airport Authority, just to repeat, the members will be Mayor Pro Tem Teran and Councilmember Perallo, with the alternate member being Councilwoman Rodriguez.
Yeah, I make a motion.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Teran,
Yes.
Councilwoman Basua,
Aye.
Mayor MacArthur,
Yes.
Councilmember Perallo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Perez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez,
Aye.
Councilman Starr.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. My goodness, I think we did. I thank everybody who stuck around, Isaiah, Doug, and the others. Dan, thank you, Pinero, and we just keep going, right? I really thank all of you for your patience and for your comments. We certainly hear, so thank you for that. And without any further business on the agenda, and without any objection, we are adjourned.